Chapter 27:30. With a thought from Qin Zhao, the red crystal clone had already attacked. Only a red arc was left in the night sky as it crashed toward Mr. Junfang. However, the clone only crashed into the barrier set up by Mr. Junfang's power. It didn't break the barrier, but Mr. Junfang's body and mind were still shaken. There was no trick to this terrifying power. It was a head-on attack. Qin Zhao controlled the clone to raise its arm and attack the barrier again. The violent tremors seemed to affect the surroundings. Red cracks spread in the night sky. Of course, they weren't spatial cracks. Instead, Qin Zhao's power spread in the air. Because of its element, the red cracks appeared in the air. Die! The power of thousands of ghosts slammed into the clone. The crystal red doppelganger instantly disintegrated. The clone couldn't resist at all. It collapsed at the first touch. However, the floating red powder circled in the air for a while and reformed with a whirlwind. Qin Zhao's clone attacked Mr. Junfang's barrier again. The fire in the forest raged. It wasn't a good thing, but it also brought Qin Zhao a huge amount of fire energy. It wasn't a good thing, but it also brought Qin Zhao a huge amount of fire energy. It wasn't much compared to the amount Qin Zhao had absorbed from the underground magma. But it was better than nothing. At least it could replenish Qin Zhao's energy. Red cracks kept flashing in the sky. They looked like red lightning bolts. Every strike was a heavy blow to everyone's heart. Qin Zhao rested for a few minutes. The clone didn't rest at all. It kept attacking Mr. Junfang's barrier. But the barrier didn't move at all. It reminded Qin Zhao of Zhang Tianyi's primordial bell. Qin Zhao had considered this before. One way to break the primordial bell was to fight Zhang Tianyi until the end of time. The second way was to reach the upper limit of the primordial bell in an instant. However, it was almost impossible to reach the upper limit of Zhang Tianyi's defense in an instant, especially with the primordial chaos flood bell's extremely powerful defensive spell. Mr. Junfang could be seen as someone at Zhang Tianyi's level. Or perhaps it was an existence stronger than him. So, his defensive spell wouldn't be weaker than Zhang Tianyi's. Therefore, it was almost impossible to forcefully break through it. Of course, there was a third method. To be precise, it was a variation of the second method. If he couldn't reach the upper limit in an instant, in that case, he would have to attack more frequently. Although he couldn't break through the opponent's defense, his pure strength wasn't completely blocked. It was like a person wearing a bulletproof vest. When bullets hit the bulletproof vest, although most of the potential energy and fatal damage could be mitigated, the bullet would not be able to withstand it. However, it would still injure the user of the bulletproof vest. This was the method Qin Zhao had thought of to deal with Zhang Tianyi. Qin Zhao raised his arm and all the red crystal pillars shattered. Then, dozens of crystal red clones appeared in front of everyone. These clones had the same power as Qin Zhao's real body. Although they were Qin Zhao's clones, they were actually the same as Qin Zhao. However, there were also limitations to their usage. The flame qi they needed was a consumable. It is not infinite. If Qin Zhao wanted to continue using this move, in that case, he would have to go through the same process as last time. Moreover, the crystal red doppelganger's range of movement was also limited. The crystal red doppelganger could barely leave the range of Qin Zhao's small world. But the further they went, the weaker Qin Zhao's senses would be. The weaker Qin Zhao's senses were, the weaker they would be. Because they were the materialization of Qin Zhao's power, their every move was controlled by Qin Zhao's spiritual power. Nevertheless, the dozens of crystal red doppelganger were still very shocking. Qin Zhao waved his arm and all the crystal red doppelganger charged forward. Boom, 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 red lightning almost lit up the sky. Mr. Junfang had tried. No matter how many crystal red doppelganger he destroyed, no matter how many times he destroyed them, the crystal red doppelganger would recover instantly. These crystal red doppelganger weren't made of flesh and blood. They didn't have any consciousness. They were just the materialization of Chen Zhao's power. It was almost impossible to destroy them. Unless he could wait until they ran out of energy. Pooh! Mr. Jun Fong spat out a mouthful of black blood. His barrier finally couldn't hold on any longer. Or rather, his body couldn't take it anymore. As for the barrier he had set up, even the 12 golden men had a barely detectable crack on it. After all, the 12 heavenly spirits formation wasn't complete. It wasn't an orthodox heaven and earth formation either. It still lacked a lot of key things. Moreover, the power of the 12 golden men wasn't endless. Especially in a battle of this level. Mr. Jun Fong had activated the 12 golden men. He was basically killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. However, Chen Zhao was too much of a threat to him. He had no choice. If he didn't use the 12 golden men, he would die even faster. A few crystal red doppelganger tore a hole in the barrier together. Then a crystal red doppelganger dove in. Seal. Mr. Jun Fong had to use part of his power to suppress the crystal red doppelganger. A black talisman hit the crystal red doppelganger. The doppelganger's body was immediately wrapped in darkness. Although the crystal red doppelganger had the same power as Chen Zhao, its defense and resistance were very weak. Mr. Jun Fong had long discovered the crystal red doppelganger's weakness. However, under that almost immortal characteristic, it could not be destroyed. The so-called weakness wasn't that important anymore. Just then, the crystal red doppelganger suddenly grinned. Mr. Jun Fong had a bad feeling. Have you tried self-destruction before? The crystal red doppelganger asked, looking at Mr. Jun Fong. You should know that I'm resistant to fire spells. Even if you self-destruct, you won't be able to hurt me, Mr. Jun Fong said with a cold snort. Ha! You're not afraid, but aren't the golden men afraid too? The crystal red doppelganger laughed. Plus, in an enclosed environment, the power of the explosion will increase by 100 times. Mr. Jun Fong's heart skipped a beat. Oh no! At this moment, he had fallen into a situation where he could only advance or retreat. If he didn't open the barrier and the crystal red doppelganger self-destructed, it might hurt the 12 spirits formation or even damage the 12 golden men. But if he opened the barrier, the dozens of crystal red doppelganger and Chen Zhao's real body would be eyeing him. One Chen Zhao was already a headache. Now there were dozens of crystal red doppelganger. Mr. Jun Fong felt that he could just wait for death. Of course, Mr. Jun Fong still wanted to struggle. Mr. Jun Fong sent another black seal at the crystal red doppelganger. Huh? You want to stop me from self-destructing? Looks like it's useful. You slowed down my self-destruction, Chen Zhao said through the crystal red doppelganger. Chapter 2731. Mr. Jun Fong knew many spells. But he didn't know much about how to stop others from self-destructing. All he could do now was delay the explosion of Chen Zhao's crystal clones. Slowing down the energy flow in Chen Zhao's clones. But this method clearly didn't solve the problem. Slowing down the explosion couldn't guarantee safety. Moreover, he had to stop the clone from self-destructing. He also had to use a portion of his power to suppress it. This made his situation even more unfavorable. Chen Zhao used the same trick again. Another hole was torn open, and this time, 2 crystal red doppelgangers entered. Mr. Jun Fong didn't even give them time to react. He sealed the 2 clones. However, at that moment, one of the crystal red doppelgangers began to expand rapidly. Oh no! How is this possible? Terrifying energy was released instantly. The entire sky was dyed red. Mr. Jun Fong was also swallowed by the impact. Fong Ya and the others all opened their mouths wide and looked at the doomsday-like scene in astonishment. How can this be? Perfected Master Qing Ping was confused. Perfected Wu Su and Zhang Tianyi could tell that something was wrong. Chen Zhao had his clone self-destruct in advance. When his clone entered Old Man Su's barrier, it did so, so Old Man Su wasn't prepared at all. He thought that these two clones were the same as the first one and only self-destructed after entering. Perfected Master Wu Su looked at the sky full of red light. Are you sure this is okay? This place is remote, but such a large-scale phenomenon can't be hidden from ordinary people. I've already talked to the person in charge, Zhang Tianyi said calmly. They're ready at any time. Once there's a phenomenon that exceeds the scale, they'll announce that it was caused by a meteorite. Perfected Master Wu Su nodded. When he looked at Chen Zhao, his eyes were filled with complicated emotions. No wonder you invited him to participate in this operation. Too bad, he's not from Kunlun. If he could join us, the next 200 years of Huaxia's supernatural world would belong to Kunlun. Perfected Master Qing Ping looked at Chen Zhao's figure and kept thinking. Perfected Master Wu Su's words made her even more certain. The red light gradually dissipated. The first thing that appeared in the sky were 12 golden giants. However, the 12 golden giants were already broken. Thick yin qi emanated from the broken body. These 12 gigantic bodies could no longer contain the yin qi contained within them. It was the yin spirit energy refined from the flesh and blood of millions of people. There was also Mr. Jun Fong, who stood in the middle of the 12 golden men. His body was no less damaged than the 12 golden men. His body was covered with burn marks left behind by the raging flames. In the end, the 12 heavenly spirits formation was destroyed. He had no way of stopping it. I want you dead. Jun Fong roared angrily. Spirit of Dutian, obey me. The 12 golden men suddenly melted into a golden liquid and fused into Mr. Jun Fong's body. Jun Bangsan absorbed all of the 12 metal colossi's power in one go. His aura suddenly became sinister and terrifying. He was like a living ghost king, but he was more terrifying than any ghost king in the world. Mr. Jun Fong pounced at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao punched back without hesitation. Mr. Jun Fong scratched Chen Zhao's chest. Chen Zhao also punched Mr. Jun's chest. Chen Zhao's chest was scratched, leaving 3 shocking black marks. Half of Mr. Jun Fong's body was smashed into pieces. However, after smashing half of Mr. Jun Fong's body, a huge amount of yin spirit energy immediately filled the gap. However, after filling the gap, it was no longer flesh and blood. Instead, it was filled with endless wailing resentment. It was a nauseating substance that emitted the wails of ghosts and gods that made one's scalp numb. Chen Zhao immediately forced out the yin spirit energy contained in the black scar on his chest. At the same time, he had the crystal clone keep Mr. Jun Fong busy. Mr. Jun Fong didn't dodge at all. He fought with all his might. Mr. Jun Fong had already found a way to deal with the crystal clones. He didn't shatter them. Instead, he sent the yin spirit energy into the crystal clone's body. The crystal clone wouldn't lose its ability to move for a short while. The yin spirit energy would affect Chen Zhao's control over the crystal clone. One had to admit that Mr. Jun Fong's experience was even greater than everyone else's combined. Soon, the dozens of crystal clones lost their use and froze in place. Red and black interweaved on the crystal clones' bodies. 2 forces were fighting inside them. However, the red power clearly had the upper hand. Soon, the black power would be forced back. Mr. Jun Fong knew this too, so he had to use this time to defeat Chen Zhao. As long as he defeated Chen Zhao, there was still hope. In this battle, either Chen Zhao or he would die. Chen Zhao didn't retreat. Instead, he advanced. He'd never been afraid of anyone in a physical fight. Since Mr. Jun had hit him once, he returned the favor with a tooth for a tooth. The two fought from the ground to the sky, then back to the ground. Both of them were using their strengths. Even the mountains and rivers were about to be shattered by them. Chen Zhao had never used so much life force before. After all, every time he repaired his body, he needed a huge amount of life force. On the other hand, Mr. Jun Fong's body had been shattered countless times by Chen Zhao. Right now, Mr. Jun Fang's Yin spirit energy had covered most of his body. Even his head was covered in it. Old Su seems to have lost control, perfected Wu Su said. There are millions of Yin spirits, Zhang Tianyi said solemnly. They've also been imprisoned by the 12 metal men for 2,000 years. If their resentment is released, it'll be more terrifying than a nuclear explosion. Every time Chen Zhao destroys Old Su's body, he's one step closer to losing control. Perfected Qing Ping's expression was also solemn. If we don't think of a way to completely destroy Old Su, the final result might be the Yin spirits completely controlling his body and nurturing a peerless demon fetus. In the past, they'd seen some evil cultivators use unorthodox methods to nurture demon fetus. However, those people only used dozens or hundreds of Yin spirits and dared to claim that they had nurtured a peerless demon fetus. But Mr. Jun Fang was different. There were millions of Yin spirits. The quantitative change had already caused a qualitative change. They all knew that they had to completely destroy Mr. Jun Fang to win. But how could they completely destroy Mr. Jun Fang? Chen Zhao. Zhang Tianyi's expression was conflicted. Suddenly, he sent Chen Zhao a telepathic message. Chen Zhao turned around and looked at Zhang Tianyi, confusion in his eyes. Zhang Tianyi's lips twitched. Chen Zhao's expression changed. Chapter 2732. In the end, Chen Zhao nodded. Zhang Tianyi snickered. Both Taoist Wushu and Qingping looked at Zhang Tianyi in confusion. Then they turned to Chen Zhao. They must have talked about something. Chen Zhao didn't seem very willing. Zhang Tianyi suddenly made a seal with both hands. Both Taoist Wushu and Qingping wanted to see what was going on. Unfortunately, Zhang Tianyi's spell wasn't something they'd seen before. Just as Taoist Wushu and Qingping were confused, Zhang Tianyi's spell was complete, but he didn't use it on Mr. Jun Fang. It was on Chen Zhao. The two were shocked again. What was going on? That spell just now was obviously an offensive spell. Even the two of them could feel the malice of the spell. Why would it be used on Chen Zhao? Was Zhang Tianyi a spy? Of course, this thought only flashed past their minds. Because Chen Zhao didn't resist at all. The spell accurately hit Chen Zhao. Just then, Chen Zhao's aura suddenly fell silent. Mr. Jun Fang retreated abruptly. He didn't know what was going on. Moreover, he was aware of his current state. If he allowed the evil spirits to continue corroding his body, then he wouldn't be able to escape the fate of being completely corroded by the evil spirits. But facing Chen Zhao, he couldn't hide or retreat at all. He could only take a breather for now. He could feel that Chen Zhao's sudden silence was like a volcano about to erupt. Just then, the crystal clones suddenly disappeared. Panting, Mr. Jun Fang stared at Chen Zhao. The uneasiness was spreading. The crystal red powder didn't disperse. Instead, it gathered behind Chen Zhao and then stuck to his skin. It seemed like something bad was about to happen. Suddenly, Chen Zhao lifted his head. His round eyes flashed with scarlet light and his open mouth was dripping with saliva. Right now, Chen Zhao didn't seem like a person. He was more like a beast. It was like a starving beast. Under the red powder, Chen Zhao's skin looked like lava. Run. That was the only thought in Mr. Jun Fang's mind. Even though he knew that running in the middle of a battlefield was the stupidest decision. But instinct still won over reason. Mr. Jun Fang turned to run. But Chen Zhao was like a beast. Run and sprint on all fours. He instantly appeared in front of Jun Bangsan, blocking his escape route. Enlightened being Wu Su and enlightened being Qing Ping were both surprised. He couldn't help but look at Zhang Tianyi. They obviously needed Zhang Tianyi's help. Zhang Tianyi looked at Chen Zhao's current state with satisfaction. What Jun Bangsan felt right now wasn't danger. It was not just dangerous. Jun Fang unhesitatingly reached out with his demonized claws. But Chen Zhao faced him with a lava claw as well. Jun Fang's demonized claw was torn off by Chen Zhao's lava claw. But Chen Zhao didn't throw it away. Instead, he brought it to his face and bit it. At this moment, everyone was pissed off. Jun Fang finally understood where this feeling came from. The man in front of him didn't want to kill him. It wanted to eat him. Chen Zhao threw down his withered arm. Meanwhile, Chen Zhao kept chewing. Chen Zhao devoured the essence, blood, Jun Fang's demonic qi, and the power of the undead spirits. After all the power was devoured, the arm revealed its original appearance. Jun Fang couldn't help but take a few steps back. Look at you now. Aren't we the same kind? We're on the same side. Chen Zhao slowly raised his head and stared at Jun Fang dangerously. Same kind? I'm different from you. Chen Zhao suddenly pounced at Jun Fang. Stop. Do you want to become a demon? Chen Zhao grabbed a piece of Jun Fang's flesh. The piece of flesh seemed to have been cursed. It emitted an ominous aura and power. Chen Zhao didn't reject it. He devoured it directly. Enlightened being Wu Su and perfected being Qing Ping looked at Chen Zhao's terrifying man-eating appearance. Old Zhang, what do you mean by this? Even if he's not from Dragon Tiger Mountain, there's no need to destroy him. Perfected being Qing Ping was rather angry. After all, she had secretly designated Chen Zhao as the leader of Mao Mountain or even an elder. You said that I destroyed him? What a joke. How can that kid be destroyed so easily? But now, do you think he's lost his mind? Zhang Tianyi looked at Chen Zhao. You haven't seen what he looks like when he loses his mind. If he really did, he would open his mouth and eat old Su instead of just absorbing the power of the undead. You're letting him absorb millions of thousand-year-old undead? You're harming him. If he becomes crazy, you won't be able to absolve yourself from the blame. Don't worry. His digestive ability is very good, very good. Zhang Tianyi said. After all, he can swallow the serpent and Kunlai alive. That's not his limit. Zhang Tianyi had discovered something special about Chen Zhao when he was hit by the 9 viscera techniques. It was Chen Zhao's shocking digestive ability. It wasn't strange for him to swallow the flesh and essence of either of them. However, the serpent and Kunlai both walked the extreme path of cultivation. Their flesh and blood had long been tempered to the point of danger. But Chen Zhao felt like he had just finished eating beef and then had a big bowl of seafood noodles. There were no adverse reactions at all. At least, Chen Zhao didn't explode. Instead, he received unprecedented satisfaction. This made Zhang Tianyi feel that Chen Zhao's digestive ability had already surpassed the range of ordinary people. As for the 9 viscera techniques, Chen Zhao had been in seclusion for a few days. Zhang Tianyi hadn't been idle either, because Imo Han was stranded on Dragon Tiger Mountain. It wasn't difficult for Zhang Tianyi to dig something out of him. The 9 viscera techniques were Zhang Tianyi's spoils of war. Of course, Zhang Tianyi only needed one look to know the characteristics of the 9 viscera techniques. In another 2 days, Zhang Tianyi had improved the 9 viscera techniques. What Chen Zhao was hit by now was the improved 9 viscera techniques. It directly stimulated his appetite to the extreme, which was the appetite of the old version of the 9 viscera techniques when he lost control. It didn't need to take a few days to brew. At the same time, he would retain some rationality so that the person hit wouldn't completely lose control. Of course, the new version of the 9 viscera techniques that Zhang Tianyi had developed wasn't for ordinary people. If he used it to take revenge on his enemies, he didn't lack such spells. It didn't matter if he had the 9 viscera techniques or not. Zhang Tianyi's real target was Chen Zhao. Only Chen Zhao was suitable to use this move. Only Chen Zhao could withstand this beast-like appetite. At the same time, he had a monstrous appetite and an inhuman digestive ability. Moreover, Chen Zhao had experience with this. Other than Chen Zhao, probably no one could withstand such terrifying side effects. And now, this side effect was the key to turning the situation around. Chapter 27:33. Of course, maintaining his rationality was so that he wouldn't eat everything. For example, Chen Zhao didn't want to eat Mr. Junfang. Although he was not a human now. But in essence, he was still human. Whether it was from the material structure of his body, or from his mode of thinking. He was still human, so Chen Zhao really couldn't do it. He was also a picky eater. Therefore, the 9 viscera techniques could overcome Chen Zhao's pickiness. At the very least, Junfang San's yin energy was no longer so difficult to swallow. Chen Zhao crushed a piece of flesh that had lost all its dark spirit power. Do you think this power is some kind of panacea? You'll end up like me, killed by another monster. Junfang roared as he struggled helplessly. In his eyes, Chen Zhao was a monster. You're not far from becoming a demon. Have you heard of the theory that demonized people are 3 times stronger? Chen Zhao's lava claw pressed down on Junfang's head and then pressed down heavily. A terrifying amount of yin spiritual energy gushed out from the hole in Junfang's head like a geyser. Chen Zhao opened his mouth and poured the dark spirit power into his body. Chen Zhao felt that his appetite was big enough. In the past, Chen Zhao had also devoured the negative emotions of the scumbags in American prisons. It was also in the millions. At the time, Chen Zhao didn't think it was a big deal. But now, Chen Zhao realized that he had still underestimated the power of evil spirits. This thing was much more advanced than the monsters materialized from negative emotions. At least, Chen Zhao felt full now. But being full meant that you could probably eat more. Moreover, if something like yin spirit energy were to leak out, it could probably make the entire Qinling Mountains barren. About the same as nuclear waste. Therefore, even if he had to force himself, he had to swallow the nuclear waste from the supernatural world. In the past, Chen Zhao thought that he wasn't very responsible. But now, he wished that he didn't have any sense of responsibility. A sense of responsibility was really troublesome. Especially in big trouble, the sense of responsibility would become even more troublesome. Chen Zhao's understanding of the inner world allowed him to be as powerful as his heart. However, one's appetite couldn't depend on their imagination. All Chen Zhao could do now was compress the dark power. He had to compress the yin energy as much as possible. However, compressing yin spirit power and compressing air were 2 different things. Moreover, compression inside the body was not the same thing as compression outside the body. With Chen Zhao's current abilities, if he went all out, he could even compress a mountain into a basketball. But in his stomach, even if he used all his strength, he couldn't do that. This dark power was not much more difficult than the other types of energy he had absorbed or assimilated in the past. The main problem was that the quantity was too large. Finally, Chen Zhao was full. He could only let the dark lava devour him. In fact, the dark magma didn't care what it ate. The final direction was still himself. However, he could treat the dark lava as his other stomach. But dark lava's situation was similar. The dark lava couldn't devour more food than Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao felt that he needed to change his stomach or digestive system. Chen Zhao wasn't afraid of bursting himself. He wouldn't burst anyway. In fact, when a person is full, most of the time, their stomach doesn't explode. On the contrary, if a person ate too much, they would only spit it out. Even though Chen Zhao had been affected by the 9 viscera techniques, he couldn't eat endlessly. The 9 viscera techniques only needed to be full, and the 9 viscera techniques would dissolve itself. Even after Zhang Tianyi's improved 9 viscera techniques, he still couldn't get rid of this condition. In that instant, Chen Zhao felt a sense of satisfaction. He could clearly feel his appetite rapidly disappearing. At the same time, Mr. Junfang's body was still emitting large amounts of yin spirit power. It was as if his body contained limitless yin spirit power. Of course, for a normal person, the yin spirit power he had could indeed be called limitless. In just a few breaths, the escaping yin spirit power had gathered into a black cloud in the sky. Zhang Tianyi. Think of a way. Chen Zhao turned around and roared. No way. Unless you can resurrect that Su Fu old ghost. Chen Zhao clearly couldn't accept this result. After all, he'd gone through so much trouble to kill the enemy. Now, he had to personally revive him. He would be crazy to accept this reason. Moreover, once Mr. Jun Fong revived, they would probably be in trouble. It was even possible that Mr. Jun Fong would use this opportunity to threaten them. Therefore, Chen Zhao definitely wouldn't revive Mr. Jun Fong. Chen Zhao took a deep breath. He looked around. The black cloud in the sky was getting thicker and thicker. The fire in the forest was also starting to die out because of the Yin spirit power. This possibility was only 1 in 10,000. If all the Yin spirit power spread out, everything within 1,000 miles might become a forbidden zone for life. Chen Zhao had an idea. He grabbed Mr. Jun Fong's body. He opened his mouth again and sucked the Yin spirit power into his body. This time, he wasn't using the Yin spirit power as food. He was guiding the Yin spirit power into his inner world. Chen Zhao's appetite was limited. However, his inner world could contain limitless energy. Of course, Chen Zhao had already developed a unique method of channeling his qi. It was a breathing method that only suited him and the flame qi. Therefore, he hastily sucked the Yin spirit power into his inner world. This wasn't a wise decision. Of course, Chen Zhao could also choose to let it go. He could just leave. After all, Chen Zhao had already done everything he could. He had basically done all Zhang Tiany's request. However, after thinking for a long time, Chen Zhao still decided to do his last bit. Chen Zhao didn't just absorb the Yin spirit power from Mr. Jun Fong's body. He also absorbed the Yin spirit power that had dissipated earlier. As Chen Zhao continuously absorbed the Yin spirit power, the Yin spirit power almost dyed his inner world black. However, the flame qi quickly took back the initiative and completely suppressed the Yin spirit power. Although the Yin spirit power was huge, it was still ownerless. It wouldn't actively attack or defend, and Chen Zhao could control the flame qi. However, Chen Zhao remembered that the conflict and opposition between the flame qi and Yin spirit power was very similar to old monster Kunlai's original cultivation method. It was a cultivation method after absorbing Yin and Yang qi. Although the path and method of operation were different, the idea was very similar. After the Yin and Yang qi was refined, it could produce chaotic energy. Then, could the refinement of the flame qi and Yin spirit power produce new energy? Chapter 2734. Of course, Chen Zhao couldn't do it on the spot. He had to find a place with no one around to do it. If he cultivated in front of Zhang Tiany like this, he would probably be used as a test subject. Zhang Tiany, Wu Xiu, and Qinghe were all confused. Chen Zhao had clearly eaten too much earlier. Why did his appetite suddenly increase? Could something like appetite be activated in a berserk mode? While the three were still confused, Chen Zhao's dark lava had already covered Mr. Cunio's body. There wasn't any more dark power seeping out. A gust of wind blew past. Then the sky was covered by dark clouds again. But this time, the dark clouds weren't the result of a spell. It was a natural phenomenon. Soon, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, followed by a downpour. No one tried to block it. They enjoyed the baptism of the rain. It was as if they were washing away the pain and filth on their bodies. Chen Zhao looked over. In the end, his gaze landed on Zhang Tiany, Wu Xiu, and Qinghe. Where's Tamamo? You let him go? Chen Zhao's tone was somewhat interrogative. We didn't let her go, Qinghe said awkwardly. We didn't stop her. Tamamo was indeed weaker than Mr. Cunio. Theoretically, Chen Zhao could take care of Mr. Cunio alone. If the three old guys worked together, they should have been able to keep Tamamo here. But that wasn't the case. Tamamo hadn't planned on fighting them at all. She'd already left a way out for herself. More importantly, Tamamo no Mei's strength was not weak. Defeating Tamamo might not be difficult, but killing her wouldn't be so easy. The biggest difference between Tamamo and Mr. Cuneo was that Mr. Cuneo couldn't hide. Mr. Jun Fong couldn't hide. No matter where he hid, he would be as conspicuous as a 120-watt light bulb. Tamamo only had to hide in a crowd. If she wanted to, she could hide until the end of time. This had nothing to do with a few people working together. Even if there were 10 people at the same level. If Tamamo wanted to run, they wouldn't be able to stop her. Receiving Chen Zhao's disdainful gaze, the three old guys all had unnatural expressions. Never mind. I'm tired. Forget it. I'm tired. Chen Zhao's expression collapsed, revealing his fatigue. Chen Zhao didn't plan on asking where Tamamo no Mei had gone. In fact, Chen Zhao also knew how slippery Tamamo was. He had met her 3 times and fought her twice. And every time, he didn't make her stay. He told the 3 of them to leave Tamamo behind. It was indeed a little difficult for them. Moreover, if Tamamo no Mei went all out, he probably wouldn't be any easier to deal with than Jun Bangsan. This was because Tamamo no Mei had never revealed her true strength. No one knew how many trump cards she had. She was a demon that was even more ancient than Jun Bangsan. Chen Zhao looked at Zhang Tianyi. I want to read Dragon Tiger Mountain's records. Zhang Tianyi's mouth twitched. This time, he had tricked Chen Zhao into going back to China. He was treating Chen Zhao as a free fighter again. If he refused at this time, Chen Zhao would probably destroy his Dragon Tiger Mountain. Moreover, what Chen Zhao wanted to read would probably not be an ordinary book. You absorbed so much Yin spirit energy, are you really okay? Zhang Tianyi asked. If something happens to me, are you going to suppress me? Hee. Zhang Tianyi smiled awkwardly. He was embarrassed because Chen Zhao had hit the nail on the head. If anything happened to Chen Zhao, it would be his fault. Mr. Chen. Seeing Chen Zhao return to Dragon Tiger Mountain, Mo Han didn't know how he felt. Happy? Happy? Of course not. Mo Han knew his current position. He was Chen Zhao's slave. He had no right to speak in front of Chen Zhao. But in fact, he wasn't completely without benefits. At least, Chen Zhao could be considered his backer now. In the past, he had many strong enemies in China. Those who could be his enemy, live until now, and remember him were basically not easy to deal with. So, having a backer could indeed greatly increase his chances of survival. He knew that Chen Zhao had been dragged by Zhang Tianyi to deal with a terrifying enemy. It was said that it was an enemy that could cause a huge incident. Of course, he knew how terrifying a demon that could cause a huge incident was. In fact, in the incident back then, he was only cannon fodder. But he was still lucky enough to witness that unprecedented battle. Mo Han was also a demon that had experienced the incident 20 years ago. Now, Chen Zhao had returned unharmed. Then the demon would naturally be executed. Chen Zhao glanced at Mo Han and nodded. He didn't say anything else. After Chen Zhao arrived at Dragon Tiger Mountain, he went straight to the library. Even the secret books in the library were open to Chen Zhao. Zhang Tianyi was also very helpless. If he used the books in the library to fool Chen Zhao, then their friendship would be completely broken. This time, he was in the wrong for calling Chen Zhao back. If he played tricks on this kind of thing again, Chen Zhao definitely wouldn't care about him anymore. What Chen Zhao needed now was to systematically understand his own path. It was almost impossible to want a complete set of cultivation methods. Chen Zhao might be the person with the highest cultivation in human history, or at least one of them. So, there was currently no complete cultivation method or theory. Even the cultivation method Chen Zhao got from old monster Kunlai wasn't very complete. And it was more suitable for demons to cultivate. Even for the demon clan, most of them were not suitable to cultivate that cultivation method. It could be said that at Chen Zhao's level, it was no longer suitable for any of the existing cultivation methods. Chen Zhao needed to cultivate and explore on his own. It wasn't a very pleasant thing to be the teacher of the first and all the latecomers. Because exploring meant the unknown, and the unknown meant danger. But at this time, the advantage of Chen Zhao's strong body and mental strength was displayed. If it was Zhang Tianyi, he would be asked if he dared to give him a set of cultivation deviation meals. But Chen Zhao didn't need to worry about this. What if he got a pain in his qi circulation? It was fine, he could just turn back. Others were worried about hurting his meridians and acupuncture points, but Chen Zhao didn't have such worries at all. Chen Zhao even dared to swallow the nuclear waste and yin qi in the spiritual world. He might even be able to develop a new train of thought. Of course, Chen Zhao's constitution was almost impossible to replicate. Chen Zhao being able to reach his current level was largely related to luck. There was also an important thing, the golden key. But it wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was the evolution key. The evolution key fully explained the saying, "What can't kill me will make me stronger in the end." When Chen Zhao entered Dragon Tiger Mountain's library, the library was also locked, temporarily not allowing people to enter. Chapter 2735. What's going on? Why did his aura disappear? Zhang Tianyi sharply sensed that Chen Zhao's aura had suddenly disappeared from the library. This wasn't the first time. Chen Zhao's aura had disappeared irregularly in the past 2 days. At first, Zhang Tianyi would think that something had happened to Chen Zhao when he was cultivating. But as the number of times increased, Zhang Tianyi didn't find it strange anymore. He didn't give up on checking Chen Zhao's situation. But he still couldn't figure it out. Zhang Tianyi stood in front of the library, wondering if he should push the door open to see what was going on. Just then, the door opened from the inside. Chen Zhao walked out with a smile on his face. Zhang Tianyi revealed a trace of surprise. At the moment, Chen Zhao looked like an ordinary person. He didn't have any aura. Even the small world had disappeared. If Chen Zhao had concealed his aura, Zhang Tianyi could understand. But if the small world was concealed, it would make Chen Zhao feel like he was fighting him. That time, Chen Zhao had also completely merged the small world into his body. However, Chen Zhao was clearly not in the same state as before. How did you do it? Zhang Tianyi asked straightforwardly. Normally, it was harder for Shangqing realm experts to hide their cultivation than ordinary cultivators. If a cultivator was slightly better and had a higher perception, they would be able to sense the existence of the small world. Even if Chen Zhao had merged the small world into his body like last time, the abnormal aura on his body would also expose his strength. But right now, Chen Zhao's aura was like that of an ordinary person. If it wasn't for Chen Zhao's annoying face, Zhang Tianyi almost suspected that the person before him was an imposter. I'm not sure either. The micro world and my body have truly fused into one, and the inner world and the micro world have fused into one. In the inner world, after the flame qi and the yin spirit qi fused and tempered, a strange energy was produced. Because it was tempered by my own magic power, when it was stimulated by my magic power, this energy would vibrate and tear open an opening in a different space. Then, the purer spiritual energy of heaven and earth would directly pour into my body from this different space. In other words, even in an absolute vacuum environment, I won't lack spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and I won't lose my magic power due to the exhaustion of spiritual energy of heaven and earth. You said you can tear open a space? Do you know the origin of this alternate dimension? I don't know, Chen Zhao said. According to modern science, it should be a world that's vaster and larger than our world. It also has spiritual qi that's 100 times denser than ours. I even have a rather bold guess. Chen Zhao nodded. What guess? Have you considered the problem of the spiritual qi tide? What does your current breakthrough have to do with the spiritual energy tide? People have always speculated that Earth is actually the great Tao golden core of some peerless expert, and the heavenly patterns are the meridians of this peerless expert. You should be familiar with this rumor, right? Zhang Tianyi lowered his head and thought for a moment, then nodded. Yes, but there's almost no basis for this speculation. If this is true, then this peerless expert is in the same realm as me. No, if this is true, then this peerless expert must be in a realm or higher than mine, so he must be able to tear open that alternate dimension. Then, the spiritual qi tide can explain why the density of spiritual qi will increase by 10 or even 100 times. It gives me the feeling that it's more like the cycle of a cultivation technique. Chen Zhao paused and then said, also, we've all speculated that the evolution of a small world will eventually turn into a real world. If this speculation is correct, then isn't Earth a real example? Zhang Tianyi suddenly looked at Chen Zhao. You found the trick? No, Chen Zhao said helplessly. Although my cultivation has improved, I still have no clue about our speculation. At the moment, Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi were not joking around as usual. Instead, he seriously communicated with Zhang Tianyi. Then, do you think that Earth is alive? Chen Zhao shook his head. According to the clues we have and the hypothesis, I think it's dead. When is the next gathering? You decide the time, Chen Zhao said. Right now, their discussion was only vague. There were many things that could not be studied or discussed in depth. Moreover, Zhang Tianyi felt that he was not ready yet. Because his realm was not high enough. Chen Zhao had already come into contact with things of that level. But Zhang Tianyi himself had no clue. Therefore, it was easy for Chen Zhao to make mistakes because he could not understand. This would be a huge loss to his cultivation and path. Did you find anything in the library of Mount Longhu? Yes, I found many useful things. They were quite enlightening for me. Which books enlightened you? You have to use your heart to find them. If you are fated, you will naturally find them. When Chen Zhao said this, he only felt that his body and mind were at ease. On the other hand, it was as if Zhang Tianyi had been fed dog shit. Because most of the time, he was the one saying this to others. In reality, there was nothing that could be said or not said. It was just that he was not willing to say it, or was too lazy to say it. But in the eyes of the low-level cultivators, it was because Zhang Tianyi was unfathomable and they were too mediocre. But as an expert, how could Zhang Tianyi not know? Chen Zhao's words were just to disgust him. Yes, Chen Zhao was purely trying to disgust Zhang Tianyi. Life is full of ups and downs. Zhang Tianyi roared. Don't bully me because I'm poor. Say this to me in 30 years, Chen Zhao sneered. Oh, I'm leaving. You're going back to America? In a few days, I've arranged a gathering with the employees of a domestic animation company. I'll go home after the Lantern Festival. Do you mind if I come too? Yes, Chen Zhao said with a cold expression. Don't be so stingy. At most, I'll invite you to the gathering of the studio I recruited. I've invested hundreds of millions of yuan into my animation company. It's not something any random person can compare to. My goal is for my company to change the domestic animation market, to charge out of Asia and into the world. Chen Zhao did not have such plans, but it did not stop him from bragging in front of Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi glanced at Chen Zhao with disdain. Why don't you say charge out of the solar system and into the universe? Hee. Anyway, you can be jealous. My company is about to produce an animated film. How about we compete? I'll have my studio produce an animation too. Let's compare the ratings. Or the number of internet views. What ratings and views? My goal is the big screen. You're too low end. I don't want to talk to you. You'll lower my level. Chapter 2736. Shouldn't you leave something behind before you leave? Zhang Tianyi asked. Chen Zhao turned to look at Zhang Tianyi. Why do you sound like a villain's lines when they reveal their true colors? Zhang Tianyi looked at Chen Zhao with a dark expression. He thought to himself, even if I'm a villain, I won't pick on a mad dog like you. You've seen my grand disciple. Fangya, how about it? Are you interested in being a teacher? Ha. Chen Zhao chuckled. Zhang Tianyi said, goodbye. Don't go. Zhang Tianyi pulled Chen Zhao. You can even be a teacher in name. Wow. Should I be proud? Chen Zhao's face was full of disdain. She's the future star of Dragon Tiger Mountain. She might even be the sect leader or a celestial master. It's not embarrassing to be a teacher to a celestial master. Don't think I don't know that there are as many future sect leaders as dogs in your sect. Future celestial masters are everywhere, like that 1,000-year-old bloodline. Don't tell me you brought him here to be a mascot. Then I can't help it. There are too many talents in the sect. I have a headache too. Zhang Tianyi had an expression that was asking for a beating. However, there are so many prodigies who can truly reach the Shangqing realm. The successors who guard the mountain gates may not be able to walk out from among them. Talent is one thing, opportunity is another. This was the reality. If one could reach the Shangqing realm just by relying on talents, in this world, there wouldn't only be a handful of Shangqing realm experts. As far as Chen Zhao knew, there were only Biafra, the 23rd generation Bloody Mary, Zhang Tianyi, Wu Suzhenren, and Qing Pingzhenren. Furthermore, who knew how many heavenly materials and earthly treasures they had used in the process? And with the Celestial Master sect's current status and prestige, they needed at least one Shangqing realm master to protect them from being coveted. Even when he died and the spiritual tide era came. And Chen Zhao was undoubtedly the best guide for Fangya. Zhang Tianyi also knew that it was too difficult for Fangya to become the second Chen Zhao. But even if Fangya only reached the Shangqing realm, the Celestial Master sect of Dragon Tiger Mountain would make a fortune. No time, no interest, no ideas, no benefits. In fact, if Fangya really did manage to lead the Celestial Master sect on Longhu Mountain one day, she would indeed have a very good network of connections. Even if she did not manage to take over the Celestial Master sect of Mount Longhu in the end, she would still be an important figure in the sect. In the future, when you run into trouble, all you have to do is take it out. I'm the teacher of the Celestial Masters of Longhu Mountain. Just this title alone was enough to make him awesome. However, teaching disciples was a waste of time. Chen Zhao didn't need it. His laziness was a terminal cancer. Moreover, Chen Zhao didn't really like the disciples of the celestial sect of Dragon Tiger Mountain. Especially that Yang guy. To others, those with the surname Yang were noble and unsullied. But to Chen Zhao, she was a fucking saint. You owe me a favor and you're not going to return it just because you say so. I asked you to go undercover, but you went undercover and became one of the other party's people. If he didn't have a good sect, if he didn't have a good grandmaster. Chen Zhao cut him up like sashimi. Who knew if Fangya would also be trained by Zhang Tianyi to become the second Yang Gua? Chen Zhao didn't plan to have another disciple who disobeyed him all the time. That would just be looking for trouble for himself. Zhang Tianyi still wanted to persuade him. But Chen Zhao made up his mind. He wouldn't listen. He would just chant. Old Mo, we're going down the mountain. Mo Han put down the Dragon Tiger Mountain book in his hand. These few days, he was actually immersed in the book provided by the Taoist sacred ground. It was a little hard to extricate himself. The reason why Dragon Tiger Mountain did not restrict Mo Han. Actually, it was because there were no restrictions on Chen Zhao. But what was the difference between Chen Zhao and Mo Han? If Mo Han really needed a book, Chen Zhao would tell him. He told Chen Zhao and Chen Zhao copied it out for him. So this restriction was meaningless. He might as well show it to him openly. Of course, the prerequisite was that he couldn't copy it. Although he was not very willing to leave Dragon Tiger Mountain. Mo Han still had to follow Chen Zhao's orders. They took a flight back to Magic City. Over the past few days, Zhang Ting and Yi Ziqing had accompanied Fei Lai around the entire Sorcerer City. And Qin Zhao, this irresponsible man, only accompanied Fei Lai for 2 days. Then he disappeared without a trace. Zhang Ting and Yi Ziqing even reported him to Fei Lai. But Fei Lai was already used to this. If Qin Zhao could stay where he was obediently, that would be truly strange. Fei Lai was also not surprised by Qin Zhao's sudden return. "Darling, are you done?" Fei Lai had actually realized that something was wrong with Qin Zhao when he'd been hit by the 9 dirty spells. But she knew that she couldn't help, so she didn't show it. "Yes, I'm done." Qin Zhao nodded. "Uncle, you must have gone to defeat some demon king again. You didn't even bring me." The younger ones were very unhappy that Qin Zhao had left them behind. Even the most introverted Kilo was actually a restless young man. Moreover, he was already at the age of restlessness. Qin Zhao heard that when he was in school, he had already started fighting back against those who had bullied him. Zhang Ting and Yi Ziqing were also in the living room. They had just walked around the mall with Fei Lai. When they came back, they saw Qin Zhao. Hearing the children's words, they all thought that it was a fairy tale that Qin Zhao and Fei Lai had told them. And Qin Zhao was the hero in the fairy tale. Were all foreign children so childish? Qin Zhao chatted with the children for a bit. Then everyone went to the restaurant. Just then, a few police officers entered the restaurant. Qin Zhao recognized one of them. It was the policewoman who had brought him to the police station that day. Her name was Rolling. "Hello, Officer Rolling. Mr. Qin, there's a murder case that requires your assistance." Qin Zhao's expression was slightly awkward. "Officer Rolling, I was assisting last time too. Are you assisting this time too? Did I offend you?" "Just assisting," Rolling emphasized. "You've already explained to me what you mean by assisting in the investigation. The situation this time is a bit special." Rolling stared at Qin Zhao, but then she turned to Yi Ziqing. "Ms. Yi, the victim this time is your ex-boyfriend, Yu Keming." Yi Ziqing froze. How is that possible? He's dead? She didn't have any feelings for Yu Keming anymore. But when she heard that Yu Keming was dead, she was still shocked. "Yes, he died in his own home 4 days ago. He was only discovered today. The body has already been found. I had some conflicts with him, but you don't suspect me of being the murderer, right?" Qin Zhao said helplessly. "It's not that I suspect you, but the situation this time is a bit special. The victim's death isn't normal." Chapter 2737. This time, Rolling really wanted Qin Zhao to help with the investigation. She didn't want to trip him up or play dirty tricks. Yi Ziqing still couldn't believe Yu Keming's death. When she saw Yu Keming's photo, all her disdain and hatred for Yu Keming disappeared. Of course, Qin Zhao saw the photo too. Even he couldn't help but sigh. This guy really died a horrible death. Yu Keming's organs were smeared in a forbidden way into a horrifying scene. Yu Keming still had a smile on his face before he died. A few days had passed and his body looked a bit swollen. After a short reunion with Fei Lai helplessly, Qin Zhao was forcefully taken away again. Of course, compared to Rolling's cold attitude last time, Qin Zhao's attitude was better this time. Perhaps it was because they'd been trapped in that special space together last time. So, Rolling felt that she and Qin Zhao were life and death friends. But to Qin Zhao, if Rolling had come out 2 days later, he probably would have forgotten about her. But to Qin Zhao, if Rolling had come out 2 days later, he probably would have forgotten about her. "I didn't allow you to put your feet on the seat of my car. First of all, we're not friends. Second, even if we were, I wouldn't agree. Firstly, we're not friends. Secondly, even if we were friends, I wouldn't agree." Rolling didn't know what was in Qin Zhao's head. Was it more comfortable to sit cross-legged? Last time, he sat in the back seat. This time, he actually sat cross-legged in the front seat. "What's wrong with you?" I came to find you because I want to go to the crime scene with you and see if I can find any clues. Are you kidding? It's just a photo and I almost peed my pants. You want me to go to the crime scene? Do you think I ate too much for lunch? Chen Zhao raised his voice by 3 octaves. To be honest, even if Chen Zhao wasn't afraid of bloody scenes, he still didn't want to go. Because the crime scene wasn't bloody. It was disgusting. Rolling didn't care if Chen Zhao agreed to it or not. Then, Chen Zhao regretted it. He realized that bloody and disgusting were 2 different things. He could already feel it when he looked at the photo. However, it was still within Chen Zhao's acceptable range. But after Rolling dragged him to the crime scene, Chen Zhao felt that he'd overestimated his limits. He was used to big scenes and thought that he could handle it. But when he saw Yu Keming and the environment, he vomited. Really? I don't care who did this. Chen Zhao only wanted to say that he had lost. Although the body had been taken away by the police. But the layout of the scene was still the same. The stench still lingered in the air. Beauty, why did you drag me here? Now that I'm done being disgusted, can I go now? Show some respect. Policewoman? The people's police? Or a young lady? What do you want me to call you? I'm not in the mood to joke with you. Well, officer comrade, why did you call me here? I don't think there's anything I can help you with. Spend the night here with me. Damn, are you kidding me? Did it have to be so exciting right from the start? I'm a man with a family. Rolling's face was still dark as she looked at Chen Zhao. I think this isn't normal. It's like the ghost that hit the wall that day. I told my colleagues, but they didn't believe me. Stop joking. Whether or not there are ghosts here, it's not a place for people to live. Look here. If it's not a haunted house, then it's a bathroom. And it hasn't been flushed in decades. You want me to spend the night here? Are you trying to suffocate me to death? What if there's no ghost? We've wasted the night. Where's the ghost? Are we catching the ghost or delivering food? Have you thought it through? Rolling looked at him. I've investigated your recent whereabouts. You left some traces at Dragon Tiger Mountain. You even donated some money to the Taoist Association and became an honorary president. Did you run to Dragon Tiger Mountain to ask for help because of what happened that night? Did you get some ghost drawings from the Taoist? Or did you get a promise from a master that if you crush something when you're in danger, someone will appear to save you? What are you thinking? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. If I can get help from a master just by donating money, I can donate so much that he'll run all over the place. Fine, fine. I know you're rich. Anyway, stay here with me tonight. Why should I? Then I'll take you back to the station. I won't lock you up for long. Just 24 hours. Do as you see fit. I have nothing to do with this. I know, but you had a conflict with him, after all. It's reasonable to lock you up for 24 hours. It's like letting the dead rest in peace. I think you won't object, right? I object. Why should I? Objection overruled. I really can't stay here for another second. If I do, I'll puke out last night's supper. Chen Zhao's face paled. I'm not afraid. What are you afraid of? It's a matter of smell. It has nothing to do with courage. Do you have a cold? Or maybe you don't have a sense of smell at all. Rolling glanced at Chen Zhao. Then she pulled open the corner of her shirt, revealing the gun holster on her waist. Fine, fine. You're awesome, okay? The entire building was temporarily locked down because of this vicious incident. There was no one in the entire building except for Chen Zhao and Rolling. Chen Zhao really couldn't breathe in the room, so he sat in the corridor outside the door. A while later, Rolling came out too. Seeing Chen Zhao holding a bowl of instant noodles, she froze. Where did you get it? I saw that the neighbor's house wasn't closed, so I closed it for him. And then? When I was closing, I saw this bowl of noodles. I think it'll expire in another day. And then? I left $100. Is that why you didn't prepare a bowl for me? Without hesitation, Rolling commandeered the bowl of noodles in Chen Zhao's hands. Then, Chen Zhao picked up a bowl of noodles filled with sumptuous ingredients. Chen Zhao ate a few mouthfuls and glanced at Rolling. I saw that their ingredients are almost spoiled. Also, I'll help them deal with the expired ones. If she wasn't hungry, Rolling really wanted to flip the bowl of instant noodles. The instant noodles, which were originally delicious, were now completely tasteless. Suddenly, Chen Zhao felt some kind of spiritual fluctuation in the wall he was leaning against. It was like something had appeared. Chen Zhao put down his bowl and chopsticks and glanced at Rolling beside him. Rolling glanced at him in surprise. What's wrong? Chen Zhao thought for a moment and then shook his head. No, nothing. Whatever, that thing was too disgusting. I'll pretend I don't know. I'll spend the night in this corridor and run far away tomorrow. I'll run out of sorcery and never come back. Chapter 2738. Chen Zhao felt that with him leading the team, he should be able to keep Rolling company for the night. Tomorrow, he would be able to wash his hands of this matter and wash his hands of it. As for what Rolling wanted to do after that, that had nothing to do with him. But things didn't go as he wished. Chen Zhao wanted to have a peaceful night. But someone wasn't willing. The elevator suddenly opened with a ding. The person who came out froze. At the moment, Chen Zhao and Rolling were sitting at the elevator door. They looked at each other awkwardly. A middle-aged man wearing a yellow Taoist robe walked out of the elevator. The man's yellow Taoist robe was very similar to the ones worn by charlatans in Hong Kong movies in the early 90s. The small mustache at the corner of his mouth made him look even more cunning. When the Taoist saw Chen Zhao and Rolling, his first reaction was to take out his peachwood sword. He was about to cast a spell on the two. If you dare to use a spell, I'll stuff your head into the toilet. Chen Zhao said telepathically to the Taoist. The Taoist was stunned. His eyes widened and he stared at Chen Zhao in shock. Instantly, he broke out in a cold sweat. Not everyone could use telepathic spells. It was basically an ability that only high-end cultivators had. And the man before him was clearly a high-end cultivator. After coming into contact with Chen Zhao's murderous gaze, the Taoist froze on the spot. The Taoist priest froze on the spot, not knowing what to do for a moment. The Taoist wanted to turn and leave. But just then, Rolling suddenly took out her gun and aimed it at the Taoist. Don't move. Hands up. The Taoist glanced at Chen Zhao and could only raise his hands helplessly. He was a third-rate Taoist cultivator. He couldn't block bullets. Also, Taoists weren't good at fighting. In particular, guns that were used against ordinary people were not their forte. Of course, under normal circumstances. At a distance of less than 2 meters. He could totally subdue Rolling before she could take out her gun. But now, Chen Zhao stood beside Rolling. He didn't dare to move at all. Chen Zhao could use telepathic spells and make such a threat. This was enough to prove that Chen Zhao was definitely stronger than a dabbler like him. It's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. I'm on your side. The Taoist priest quickly raised his hands and said. Who's on the same side as you? Rolling said coldly, who are you? Why are you here? In fact, Rolling had already treated him as a suspect. According to the plot that she had made up for herself. It was an evil Taoist priest who wanted to use some evil magic. And Yu Keming was killed by this evil Taoist priest. Then, he used Yu Keming's corpse to set up that evil and disgusting scene. In the end, he just happened to see it. I also have a police comrade friend. This time, I was entrusted by him to come over and take a look at the situation. The Taoist priest quickly said. A police friend? Rowling frowned. She did not immediately accept the Taoist priest's explanation, and still pointed the gun at the Taoist priest. What's the name of your police friend? Which area is it in charge of? What's the police number? Rowling threw a few questions at him. This is the place. His name is Wang Zhe. Leader? Rowling was surprised, but his words didn't dispel her suspicions. Look at him. Rowling held the gun in one hand and took out the phone with the other. Leader, I met a sneaky Taoist priest. He said that he was entrusted by you. Is that true? You met that old liar? Old liar? What happened? He's a liar. He's in our area. He has a fortune-telling stall on Hualin Road. A few years ago, the city enforcement officers raided his stall. Then, when I passed by, I kicked the city enforcement officer. That old liar left me his business card and said that I can find him if I need anything. In recent years, he's helped me solve some problems. He really knows magic? I don't know if he knows magic, but this old liar has some connections. The old liar looked at Rowling. How about it? I didn't lie to you, did I? Only then did Rowling put down her gun. Although she still had some doubts, at least she no longer treated the old liar as a suspect. It wasn't because she trusted the old liar. It was because she trusted her leader. Why are you here? Leader Wang Zhe told me to take a look. Maybe I can find some clues here and help him solve the case. Rowling didn't think that her captain would tell her not to believe in any supernatural powers or gods. In the end, she'd actually hired a charlatan to take a look. Then why did you take out the peachwood sword when you saw us just now? I thought you were dirty things. Rowling's face darkened. The old liar looked at Chen Zhao carefully. He realized that Chen Zhao was looking at him with a smile. His gaze was really uncomfortable. A smiling tiger. The old liar thought to himself. You're the dirty thing. Rowling said angrily. Yes, I'm dirty, okay? The old liar had been on the streets for decades. He wasn't afraid of honor or disgrace. Rowling's angry words didn't even tickle him. Can you really tell what kind of spell it is? Rowling asked in a serious tone. The old liar glanced at Chen Zhao and thought, can't you just have the one beside you? Why do you have to trouble me? The old liar didn't mind being ordered around by a police comrade. Because Chen Zhao was a regular person, he could find some sense of superiority as a cultivator. But acting like a big shot in front of an expert, then he wouldn't be able to handle it. It would be fine if Chen Zhao pretended to be stable. If he was slightly out of sorts, if he did that, he would lose all his face. We're just trying to make a living. Why do you have to be so direct? The old liar decided to back out. He didn't want to follow Rowling's intentions. In any case, there was already an expert here to hold the fort. If he interfered, it would be breaking the rules. Plus, Chen Zhao was stronger than him. There was no need for him to stay and accumulate hatred. Maybe that brat's purpose was to leave a favorable impression in front of the policewoman and then chase after her. If he stayed, he might be targeted by Chen Zhao. Don't tell me you charlatans have some rule that you can't answer directly in front of regular people? If that's the case, I know the rules and I won't go around announcing it. Since you can work with our leader, you shouldn't mind working with me, right? The old liar glanced at Chen Zhao. He thought, isn't this girl's brain a little developed? Although part of her speculation was correct. Actually, no one would care about that rule. As long as one didn't go to the TV station to perform, no one would care. Work together? You're thinking too much. I don't have a working relationship with your leader. Chapter 2739. The old liar emphasized again that he and Rowling's captain, Wang Zhe, were sworn enemies. No, sworn friends. Anyway, the old liar didn't want to work with Rowling. But just then, a head popped out of the door of Yu Keming's apartment beside Rowling. It was a bloody head. The place where the door of the rental house came into contact with the bloody skull had been corroded and turned black. When the old liar saw the head, he couldn't help but be terrified. He took a few steps back and sat on the ground. Blood demon. Rolling was so frightened that she pulled out her gun. Bang, bang, Rolling's 2 shots hit the head directly. Blood splattered out from the temples of the flesh head. But it didn't die. It wasn't even injured. The bullet slowly seeped out of its face and fell to the ground. The head turned and looked at Rolling. Then it shot a mouthful of bloody phlegm at her. Rolling suddenly felt her body being pulled by a huge force. She was flung 2 meters away. Looking back, she realized that Chen Zhao had pulled her over. "What are you doing?" Chen Zhao lifted his hand and pointed at the wall beside him. The bloody phlegm that the head had spat out earlier had already left a horrifying hole in the wall. "You should thank me," Chen Zhao said. By then, the old liar had also come back to his senses. He quickly jumped up and stabbed the peachwood sword into the head's neck, which was still unable to move. Borrowing the power of the 5 mountains, 9 revolutions lightning. A bolt of lightning suddenly flashed across the old liar's peachwood sword. But the head wasn't injured at all. Instead, it turned at an unbelievable angle and looked at the old liar above. Then, the peachwood sword that had stabbed into the head started to corrode. The rot kept spreading upwards. The old liar hurriedly let go of the peachwood sword. "Hurry up and purify it." Rolling screamed in fear. Purification is something that foreigners do. "If I want to do something, I can only do it to eliminate demons and protect the Tao," the old liar corrected. "Then hurry up and eliminate demons and protect the Tao." Actually, regardless of whether it was domestic or foreign, purification or elimination, the process was similar. Basically, everyone's techniques were more or less the same. If they could get rid of the unclean things and leave behind a pure spirit body with no negative side effects, that would be considered purification. As for those who couldn't withstand it, that would be hopeless. That would be worth it to get rid of demons and defend the Tao. To put it simply, those who died would be slaying demons, while those who lived would be purified. Of course, most of the time, they only faced spiritual bodies. However, they were now facing a true demon. "Get rid of my ass, this thing can't be killed." "Motherfucker, which lunatic came up with this thing?" the old swindler cursed. Although the old swindler's means were not high, his vision was not low. In the spirit world, as long as one had a demon with them, there was basically nothing good. Turning around and leaving was a normal option. If he couldn't leave, he would hide. This was the backup option. Of course, there were always high-end people who developed some spells. It was specifically used to carry out the true exorcism. However, for the time being, blood demons belonged to the category that couldn't be destroyed. There was really no way to destroy this thing. The only thing that worked was the seal. "Can't you kill this thing? This thing is truly immortal. Hurry up and run." The old swindler was already planning to retreat. However, he still reminded Rolling to retreat out of professional ethics. Just then, black spots of erosion started appearing on the door of the rental house. Then, the blood demon's limbs appeared through the spots. After enduring the pressure that it shouldn't have, the door finally collapsed. Everyone finally saw the blood demon's true appearance. It was a thing that only maintained its human form with its head. Its limbs were completely pieced together. Even Picasso couldn't imagine such a twisted and weird thing. 5 limbs of different lengths were distributed in different positions. There was no symmetry at all. Its movements were also slightly awkward. Blood Demon looked at the old swindler and then at Rolling. Finally, it looked at Chen Zhao. "It's you." Hee hee. Blood Demon suddenly revealed a horrifying smile. Chen Zhao scratched his head. "You recognize me?" If Blood Demon hadn't said this, Chen Zhao wouldn't have noticed this bloody face. It had seemed to be Yu Keming. "You snatched Ziqing." You stole my girlfriend. Do you think you can do whatever you want with money? Blood Demon growled with a hideous expression. Ah. It's you. Chen Zhao shrugged, indicating that he'd just recognized him. You're the one who lives off a woman and isn't professional at all, right? Rolling and the old swindler broke out in a cold sweat. Didn't this guy see what state Blood Demon was in? Did he want to die faster? Did he have to anger Blood Demon? I'm going to kill you. As expected, Blood Demon was triggered by Chen Zhao's words. Just as Blood Demon pounced over, Chen Zhao suddenly grabbed the broom beside him. The broomstick stabbed into Blood Demon's mouth and nailed him to the wall. Even the old swindler was dumbfounded, not to mention Rolling. Of course, the Blood Demon could even corrode a refined peachwood sword. Not to mention the broomstick. But one had to admit that Chen Zhao's move was very cruel. Hee hee. You don't think you can kill it like this, poof. Before the Blood Demon could finish, Chen Zhao suddenly swung his tail and kicked the Blood Demon's head away. Rolling stared at Chen Zhao in shock. In her impression, Chen Zhao was a rich person. He lived like a prince and was used to enjoying life. Plus, Chen Zhao had shown last time that he was overcautious and cowardly. So, she didn't think that Chen Zhao would dare to attack such a terrifying Blood Demon. In the end, who would have thought that Chen Zhao would not only use his hands, but also his feet? Furthermore, it was such a ferocious sweep. He kicked Blood Demon's head off and sent it flying. After the blood-colored head flew out, it evaporated in the air. Then, an even more twisted head grew out from Blood Demon's broken neck. Let me finish what I have to say. Blood Demon wasn't afraid of Chen Zhao at all. Moreover, he didn't allow Chen Zhao to be angry at him. Chen Zhao didn't even let him finish. Blood Demon's cheeks puffed up and he was about to spit blood at Chen Zhao. But this mouthful of bloody phlegm was still brewing. His chin was hit hard by Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao's kick almost broke the Blood Demon's neck. You can't. Even if you become like this, you won't have a chance to take revenge, Chen Zhao said casually. Ha. If you can't kill me, you can only wait for death. It's just a matter of time. Chapter 2740. The Blood Demon was very cowardly. At least, most people and he thought so. Of course, Chen Zhao wasn't scared at all. If Chen Zhao could be defeated so easily, his enemies would probably create hundreds of Blood Demons and throw them at Chen Zhao. The only advantage the Blood Demon had before Chen Zhao was that it was disgusting. Rolling and the old liar were both stunned. They suddenly realized something. It was said to be a very powerful Blood Demon. It didn't seem like much. Chen Zhao kicked the Blood Demon's shoulder. The Blood Demon was kicked into the apartment directly. Then Chen Zhao followed. Rolling heard banging noises in the room. Chen Zhao seemed to be dismantling the house. She craned her neck and looked inside. Rolling saw Chen Zhao stabbing a chair leg into the Blood Demon's back. Yo, looks like your flesh can't corrode stainless steel. Chen Zhao chuckled at the Blood Demon. Let me go. I'll kill you. The Blood Demon roared in anger. Chen Zhao turned his head and looked at Rolling. Do you have the phone number of a secret department that deals with these things? For example, a special operation team. Rolling was dumbfounded. Before this, she didn't believe that there were supernatural things in the world. Where did he get the phone number of a secret department? No. Do you have one? Chen Zhao looked at the old liar. No. You're in the industry. How can you not have one? Then do you have the phone number of the police station chief? I do, Rolling answered. Ha. You can't kill me. It's time for you to die. The Blood Demon wanted to twist his body. But his body was locked by 4 stainless steel chair legs. Chen Zhao was still sitting in the chair. This made it impossible for the Blood Demon to move his twisted body. Let's try and see if there's a way to kill him, the old liar suggested. What idea do you have? Usually, unclean things are afraid of fire. Let's try a fire attack first, the old liar said. Rolling looked forward to the old liar's fire spell with interest. But she was soon disappointed. The old liar actually took out a gas can from the kitchen. Then he used the gas pipe to make a simple flamethrower. Ah! Ah! The blood demon howled, but the flamethrower didn't do much damage to him. When the flames sprayed on his skin would also be scorched black. However, it would quickly shed its skin and replace it with a new layer of skin. Let's try something else, Chen Zhao said. The smell is disgusting. Rolling and Old Liar covered their noses and tacitly stopped trying. Old Liar, is there any other way? The old swindler took out several dozen different talismans from his body. This is the Shadow Thunder incantation. Give it a try. The old swindler picked out one of the many talismans. A black thunderbolt burst out from the burnt talisman and struck the blood devil. The blood demon howled, but just like before, the wound quickly healed. Looks like it's useless. Let's try again. It's useless again, the dirty water technique. It's ineffective. Wood burial. Ineffective, ineffective, ineffective. Gradually, the old liar's forehead started to sweat. Could it be that this blood demon really couldn't be destroyed? Devil-aged metal destruction. The old swindler's last talisman shot out a dark golden sword light. Ah, the blood devil let out a miserable shriek. His shoulder was pierced, but the healing speed was extremely slow. Huh. Devil-aged metal destruction seems to work. He can still heal, but it's clearly much slower than before, the old swindler said in shock. It's probably because his resistance to metal spells isn't high, Chen Zhao said. Seeing that his flesh can't corrode stainless steel, we can more or less come to a conclusion. That shouldn't be the case. In the past, people tried to stab the blood demon with swords, but it didn't work. It's not that it didn't work. It's probably because his flesh and blood corroded a regular demon vanquishing sword, Chen Zhao speculated. In other words, if the demon vanquishing sword is coated with a layer of steel film, it can deal effective damage to it? I think so. Let me go. Let me go. I won't take revenge, I won't take revenge. Seeing that its weakness had been found, the blood demon immediately backed down. But just then, the old swindler suddenly let out a miserable shriek. A golden sword light pierced through the old swindler's shoulder. Chen Zhao and Rolling looked up. A stranger had appeared at the door. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to show myself, but now you want to get rid of the blood demon that I painstakingly created, so I have to show myself. It's all your fault, the stranger muttered to himself. The stranger muttered to himself, you don't know how much effort it takes to create a blood demon. Just the candidate alone is 1 in a million. Furthermore, he has to cooperate with me. Otherwise, it would be difficult to successfully create one. In the past 20 years, I've only been able to create 5. Rolling immediately pointed her gun at the stranger. Judging from his tone, he was the one who created the blood demon. In other words, he was the murder suspect. At the same time, he was the culprit behind all this. The stranger who had suddenly appeared wore a long robe and had a bald head. He didn't look old, but Chen Zhao felt that his life force had dried up. He was like an old man with a weak body. Of course, it was common for some cultivators to use evil spells to maintain their own life force through other people's life force. Chen Zhao had met quite a few cultivators like this. There were quite a few in foreign countries. But what Chen Zhao really cared about was that the stranger had actually evaded Chen Zhao's senses before appearing. To Chen Zhao, this was the most unbelievable thing. The stranger really couldn't be considered strong. At the very least, Chen Zhao had figured out most of the stranger's background with just one glance. However, Chen Zhao wasn't familiar with the Huaxia's spiritual world. Thus, he couldn't tell the stranger's background. But the old liar's expression instantly turned to panic. This panic wasn't just because the stranger had injured him with a sneak attack. It was also because he'd guessed the stranger's background. Taoist blood. How come it's you? How dare you step into Huaxia? Oh. Isn't this the ancient Taoist priest of the river? Chen Zhao and Rolling couldn't help but glance at the old liar. Ancient Taoist priest? Ancient Taoist priest? It sounded like there was some truth to this title. The old liar stood up with difficulty. Murderous intent appeared in Taoist blood's eyes. The old liar knew his identity. This time, he'd secretly returned to Huaxia. If his identity was exposed, then he definitely wouldn't have the chance to escape like before. So the old liar had to die. The old Taoist priest naturally knew Taoist blood's true identity. He was a demon who'd wreaked havoc more than a decade ago. Everyone in the Huaxia spiritual world wanted to kill him. Chen Zhao recognized the stranger's identity. The stranger would definitely kill the three of them to silence them. Thus, in this battle, he couldn't pretend to be a third-rate charlatan anymore. The old liar glanced at Chen Zhao out of the corner of his eye. Kid, this demon has an extraordinary background. Don't pretend to be a normal person. If you keep hiding, all three of us will die here. Chapter 2741. Rolling looked at him in disbelief. You too? Chen Zhao chuckled and didn't meet Rolling's gaze. He didn't respond to her. The blood demon wasn't much trouble for Chen Zhao. Even if they used ordinary people or slightly more extreme methods, Chen Zhao could solve it without raising Rolling's suspicions. But then came the blood ancestor Dallas. Chen Zhao probably wouldn't be able to deal with it like a normal person. Blood ancestor Dallas also looked at Chen Zhao. You are also a cultivator? I couldn't tell, but your blood energy is shockingly thick. If you are willing to cooperate with me, I can give you even greater power, Dallas Blood said nonchalantly. Huh, turned into this thing? Chen Zhao said, pointing at the blood demon. It's even more advanced than this, blood ancestor Dallas said. Then you need to let me weigh the pros and cons first, don't you think? Is my name not enough? Sorry, I just came back from abroad, Chen Zhao said, shrugging and smiling. I'm not familiar with the local environment. In fact, it wasn't that Chen Zhao wasn't familiar with the supernatural world. He just knew nothing about it. Therefore, he had no idea who the Taoist blood ancestor was. The old swindler had the urge to vomit blood. In fact, he'd had some hope for Chen Zhao. After all, Chen Zhao could talk to them telepathically. This was a very high-level spell. But when they heard that Chen Zhao had returned from abroad, they were all shocked. His mood instantly fell to the bottom of the valley. This was considered regional discrimination. Domestic spirit world cultivators had always held a lofty attitude toward foreign spirit world cultivators. However, this was also within reason. In most cases, when they were at the same cultivation level, domestic cultivators would beat foreign spiritualists. These were all standard operations. They heard that Chen Zhao had come back from abroad. The old liar first deducted 30% of Chen Zhao's strength. This blood ancestor Dallas was involved in a major event 20 years ago. Oh. Did he have a brilliant record in that incident? This wasn't the first time Chen Zhao had heard people mention the big event from 20 years ago. That would be a major event in the entire world. It was also a glorious era in which all the spiritualists in the world of the supernatural world cast aside their differences and fought together. Yes, it was indeed glorious. However, it was not in the battle against the peerless great demon and his army of demons and devils. Instead, it was in the matter of plotting against other cultivators. While everyone was busy fighting against the peerless great demon, he ambushed other cultivators from behind. Over 200 cultivators were ambushed by him and many of their souls were plundered by him. It was also because of that incident that his reputation in the supernatural world became unbearably bad. Blood ancestor Dallas smiled. He was not angered by the old liar's derogatory words when introducing him. He was more concerned about the outcome of the match, the winner taking all. Naturally, it also included the right to speak. It was as if he had pressed the button and he had lost. Therefore, what he had done was exposed. In fact, there were many people who were worse than him in the past. It was just that they had done it more discreetly. Regardless of time, race. There was never a shortage of traitors. You don't seem to have told me that I once defeated 12 grand cultivators on my own in a battle. The old liar's expression turned even uglier. He had purposely not said it. He was afraid of scaring Chen Zhao away. They were already at a disadvantage. Once Chen Zhao lost the courage to fight, he would only be defeated by Blood Ancestor Daolis one by one. No, with Blood Ancestor Daolis' strength, he didn't even need to defeat them one by one. The old liar was one of the 12 grand cultivators that Blood Ancestor Daolis had defeated in that battle. In that battle, Blood Ancestor Daolis had killed 8 people. 2 were heavily injured, 1 was completely crippled, and 1 was the old liar himself. Although the old liar's cultivation hadn't been crippled, his power had been greatly reduced. He had once been a first-rate grand cultivator, but now he only had first-rate vision. He had once stood at the peak of the supernatural world in Huaxia, but now he only had 1/10 or 2/10 of his cultivation left. For anyone who had once stood at the peak, it would not feel good to fall from the pedestal. This was also why the old liar had only been living as a charlatan all these years. Their only advantage now was that they were in the city. Even Blood Ancestor Daolis didn't dare to cause too much of a commotion here. His appearance in Huaxia this time was probably sneaky as well. No matter how arrogant Blood Ancestor Daolis was, he wouldn't dare to swagger around in Huaxia. Blood Ancestor Daolis, you may be skilled, but this is Huaxia. If you fight with us here, I'm afraid you won't even be able to walk out of this block before you'll be surrounded by cultivators from all directions. Humph. Don't try to scare me. What commotion can I cause against you guys? You think too highly of yourself. Although Blood Ancestor Daolis said that he didn't care, he was actually quite cautious. He was a Huaxia cultivator himself, so he naturally knew how vast the supernatural world was. Blood Ancestor Daolis didn't plan on waiting any longer, lest something unexpected happened. Blood Ancestor Daolis quickly formed seals with his hands. A scarlet mist emanated from his body. Huh. This is a spell from Dragon Tiger Mountain, right? Chen Zhao tilted his head and looked at Blood Ancestor Daolis' spell in confusion. How is that possible? That's the blood refinement magic. Old liar said. Blood Ancestor Daolis created it himself. Chen Zhao frowned at Blood Ancestor Daolis. Why did this blood refinement magic look so much like Dragon Tiger Mountain's Heaven Master Sex Kiliakosm Return to One Divine Art? Chen Zhao had read through all of Dragon Tiger Mountain's top secret books, including private collections and ancient treasures. He didn't let go of any of them. Most of them didn't leave any impression, but Kiliakosm Return to One Divine Art was one of the few that left a deep impression on Chen Zhao. This was because this technique could allow one to cultivate divine powers. What was a divine power? In more conventional terms, it was called a superpower. There were usually 2 ways to obtain divine powers. One was born, through bloodline inheritance. When one awakened magic power, they would also awaken divine powers. The other was a sudden epiphany during cultivation. The probability of this was relatively low. There wasn't a clear pattern. Anyway, it was very random. It was possible to suddenly comprehend a divine power under any circumstances. However, one thing was certain, divine powers were very practical in battle. There were even some highly compatible divine abilities that could double one's cultivation and combat strength. However, this divine ability wasn't something that just anyone could possess. If one's reincarnation technique wasn't good enough, one could only rely on luck. However, the probability of awakening divine powers was similar to winning the lottery. It was possible to think about it, but not everyone had the luck to win the lottery. Kiliakosm returned to one divine art could increase the probability. It could increase to about 1%. From 1 in a few million to 1% was already a huge increase. Of course, Chen Zhao had also thought that if he was lucky, he might be able to win once. However, to Chen Zhao, the 1% chance was still not enough. Because of this, Chen Zhao had a deep impression of this technique. Chapter 2742. The Taoist blood ancestors' cultivation technique was very similar to the Kiliakosm return to one divine art, but they were also different. Of course, the old liar didn't believe him. The Taoist blood ancestor was a heretical sect, while Longhu Mountain Celestial Master sect was a righteous sect. The two were completely unrelated. How could the Taoist blood ancestor use a cultivation technique from the Dragon Tiger Mountain's Heavenly Master sect? But Taoist narrowed his eyes at Chen Zhao. You actually recognize my cultivation technique? Are you a disciple of Longhu Mountain Celestial Master sect? If I say yes, will you let me go? Chen Zhao chuckled as he looked at Blood Ancestor Taoist. Blood Ancestor Taoist laughed too, but then he suddenly pointed at Chen Zhao. Blood boil. The next moment, a blood-colored mist suddenly enveloped Chen Zhao. At the same time, the temperature of the blood-colored mist rose to more than 1,000 degrees. Even at a distance of 2 meters, Old Liar and Rolling could feel the scorching hot steam. The two stared at Chen Zhao, who was enveloped in shock. I'm sorry, Chen Zhao, who was enveloped in the blood-red mist, suddenly asked. Apart from the sauna, do you have any other uses? Then, the blood-colored mist dispersed. However, the scattered mist once again gathered around Blood Ancestor Taoist. You don't look like a little Taoist. Blood Ancestor Taoist looked at Chen Zhao in confusion. A normal Taoist priest wouldn't be able to block his attack, even if he was from Dragon Tiger Mountain Celestial Master's sect. You seem to be mistaken about something. I am not a Taoist priest, nor am I a disciple of the Celestial Master sect of Longhu Mountain. Impossible. Since you can recognize the boundless convergence divine art, then you can only be a disciple of the Longhu Mountain Celestial Master sect. I just went to the library of the Celestial Master sect on Mount Longhu a few days ago. Hee. Do you think I'll believe that? Ask the old man beside you if he believes it or not. Even the old liar didn't believe Chen Zhao, let alone the blood ancestor. What kind of place was the Celestial Master sect of Longhu Mountain? You, an outsider, want to go to the library of Mount Longhu? Do you think Celestial Master Zhang is a pushover? That fellow would not be happy without meat for 3 meals a day. That guy didn't hesitate to eat people. The title of number 1 in the world was not just for show. Blood Ancestor Taoist considered himself a ruthless person. But in front of Zhang Tianyi, he still had to cower. Therefore, he did not believe that an outsider could stroll around the library of the Celestial Master sect on Longhu Mountain. It doesn't matter if you believe me or not. You just need to know that I'm very rich. I'm so rich that Zhang Tianyi wouldn't be angry even if I threw money at his face. Hee. You're the first person who dares to say such things about Zhang Tianyi. If I told you that Zhang Tianyi would be afraid of me, would you believe me? The look in Blood Ancestor Taoist's eyes was enough to explain his answer. I don't believe it. Blood Ancestor Taoist hated Zhang Tianyi to the core. But there was one thing he had to admit. Zhang Tianyi, that old thing, he was really strong. He was a little too strong. Even if he had been hiding abroad for 20 years. His cultivation was several times stronger than it was 20 years ago. But he still didn't have the confidence to face Zhang Tianyi. No, it was not just lack of confidence. He knew very well that he would only die if he faced Zhang Tianyi. No matter who you are, no matter what your identity is, no one can save you now. Not even Zhang Tianyi. If that old guy knows that he can save me one day, he'll probably wake up laughing even in his dreams. Even if what you said is true, he won't have the chance to wake up laughing because he'll never have the chance. Blood Ancestor Taoist's right arm suddenly seemed to turn into liquid. More accurately, it seemed to have become an arm made of blood. It was a tangible liquid. Blood ancestor Dallas suddenly swung at Chen Zhao. The bloody arm did not dissipate. Blood ancestor Dallas was extremely confident in his methods. This blood poison hand, as long as it came into contact with a drop of blood, it would immediately poison the other party. Blood poison was similar to corpse poison. As long as someone touched the skin, it would seep in. Blood poison would make the poisoned person's blood boil. Unlike the blood-colored mist from before, which only burned the enemy's skin, the blood poison would make the poisoned person's blood boil. The blood poison would directly affect the enemy's body, making the enemy's blood boil. Basically, no one could withstand this kind of boiling. The blood poison hand landed on Chen Zhao easily. After seeing Chen Zhao's skin turn red, the red color seeped in. Blood ancestor Dallas couldn't help but smile. As for the other old liar, that would be even easier. He was well aware of the old liar's injuries. Back then, he didn't hold back at all. It was a miracle that the old liar survived. Being able to leave behind a tenth of his peak cultivation was already not bad. Chen Zhao's skin slowly turned red. It was like a rash. Chen Zhao looked at his hands. Soon, the redness faded. What kind of attack is this? Poison attack? Or a spell? Chen Zhao asked curiously. The blood ancestor's pupils constricted as he looked at Chen Zhao. How could this be? Why didn't the blood poison work? You're a little weird. Dallas stared at him. If you tell me the secret of how you cured the blood poison, I can consider letting you live. Chen Zhao chuckled. Instead of thinking about letting me live, you should consider using your half-step Shang-Qing realm cultivation to fight with all your might. Otherwise, you won't have a chance. Dallas Blood's expression changed drastically. How did you know? Could the enemy see through his cultivation? How was that possible? Chen Zhao grinned. Generally speaking, very few people can get close to me without me sensing them. However, I didn't notice you even when you showed yourself. Either you're extremely good at hiding, but after seeing your methods with my own eyes, I can confirm that your hiding methods are rather ordinary, so I can only suspect that you have a small world. I can feel some traces of a small world on you. It's very similar to what I felt when I was half a step away from the Shang-Qing state. It's both that faintly discernible aura. Dallas Blood's expression finally turned serious. He was even a little panicked. That's impossible, right? This man who didn't even look 30 was a Shang-Qing realm cultivator. How was that possible? Since when was Shang-Qing realm so worthless? The old liar was confused. After all, he didn't have a strong background. He didn't have any powerful inheritance, so he'd never heard of Shang-Qing realm. But from Chen Zhao's words, it sounded like something incredible. As for Rolling, she was even more confused. After all, she was a true outsider. The conversation between Chen Zhao, the old liar, and Dallas Blood was like heaven to her. Chapter 2743. Dallas Blood's expression was cold, but his eyes became serious. You don't have to bluff, Dallas Blood analyzed calmly. If you're really half a step into the Shang-Qing realm or even the Shang-Qing realm, there's no way your name doesn't exist in the spiritual world. Moreover, there's no precedent of someone reaching the Shang-Qing realm at your age. He wasn't sure if Chen Zhao was bluffing or not. He was just guessing. At the same time, he was boosting his confidence. Chen Zhao didn't attack. But he was indeed a bit too strong. Dallas Blood's two killing moves were completely ineffective against Chen Zhao. However, Dallas Blood planned to use his trump card now. Small world. This was something he'd comprehended from a different path. Although it was still quite superficial. This powerful change wasn't just limited to the strength of his dermic powers. It was the strength of all aspects. The feeling of controlling the world in his hands brought him unprecedented pleasure. Instead, it was the feeling of being powerful in all aspects. The feeling of having the world in his hands brought him an unprecedented pleasure. It was the strength of all aspects. The feeling of controlling the world in his hands brought him unprecedented pleasure. He believed that he could easily suppress the 12 great cultivators with just one hand. A trail of blood began to form beneath Taoist Blood's feet. Chen Zhao knew that this was Taoist Blood's spell. Chen Zhao knew that this was the Blood Ancestor's spell. This scene was really similar to a woman's monthly visit. Taoist Blood looked at Chen Zhao coldly. He was angry at Chen Zhao's blabbering. But he believed that Chen Zhao wouldn't be able to laugh very soon. More and more blood appeared under Taoist Blood's feet. More and more blood appeared under Taoist Blood's feet. From the pool of blood, blood demons began to emerge one after another. 8 blood demons appeared from the front and back. 9 transformations blood demon art. The old liar's expression changed instantly. But Chen Zhao felt something else. These 8 blood demons seemed to be one with Taoist blood. They didn't seem like monsters, but more like a part of Taoist blood. This feeling. It was as if these 8 blood demons were Taoist blood's small world. That's right. It was a small world. Taoist blood had used this method to successfully reach half a step into the Shangqing realm. Chen Zhao wasn't unfamiliar with such a small world. When he was half a step into the Shangqing realm, Kong Mosa used the same method against his first opponent of the same level. Kong Mosa used his devil army as his own little world, and his power was connected with the devil army. As long as he didn't destroy his demon army, he would have endless power. And his demon army could pollute the entire area, turning the entire contaminated area into a part of Kance Mosa. Blood Ancestor Taoist, on the other hand, used the Blood Devil as his own little world. It seemed that Blood Ancestor Taoist's small world was much smaller than Kong Mosa's. In fact, at their level, the size of the pocket world did not affect it much. Moreover, Blood Ancestor Taoist's 8 blood demons were probably no weaker than Kong Mosa's demon army. However, it seemed that his little world wasn't perfect. Chen Zhao glanced at the blood demon that Yu Keming had transformed into. Was it because they were still missing one? This was indeed a clever way of doing things. If he was allowed to refine the 9th blood demon into his little world, he would definitely be able to refine it. He should be able to truly enter the Shangqing realm. Although it was a trick, there was no doubt about his strength. At least no one below the Shangqing realm could defeat him. The old liar broke out in a cold sweat. At the moment, Blood Ancestor Taoist was in his eyes. He was no longer just terrifying. He had practically become a demon with boundless magic power. That suffocating aura seemed to have solidified the surrounding air. Blood Ancestor Taoist's confidence also increased with the appearance of the 8 blood demons. He was still unfamiliar with this new realm. But when this power spread throughout his body and mind were changing. Endless power brought endless pleasure and indescribable confidence. The world was under his control. It even gave him an illusion. Even if Zhang Tianyi stood in front of him, he could still fight him. Perhaps this was the origin of the saying, dark 30% stronger, and 30% dumber. Ha! Blood Ancestor Taoist suddenly roared. In an instant, a huge amount of blood qi turned into a terrifying blood-colored demon behind Blood Ancestor Taoist. Although the blood-colored demon only had a head, it was already emitting a terrifying aura. Kneel! Blood Ancestor Taoist snorted. He had only been halfway to the Shangqing realm for less than half a year. But he had already used it 4 times. Every time, his opponents would collapse physically and mentally the moment he activated his little world. This time, he had a deeper understanding of the little world. He believed that his opponent this time would be no exception. Rolling could no longer stand and fell to the ground. The old liar was slightly better, but only slightly. His legs were trembling and he couldn't attack with the peachwood sword at all. The only use of the sword in his hand was to give him some psychological comfort. But he knew that the peach-wood sword was completely meaningless. Blood Ancestor Dallas' terrifying strength had already exceeded his previous understanding of him. What kind of old monster was this? Was there no one else in the world who could control this old monster? Not enough. You don't even have the ability to escape. Chen Zhao calmly waved his finger. Humph. The moment Blood Ancestor Dallas snorted, an even more terrifying pressure rushed toward Chen Zhao. The wall behind Chen Zhao also crumbled under the immense pressure. I told you. Chen Zhao raised his right arm and suddenly pinched the air. Not enough. Bang! In an instant, all the bloody light and the blood-colored monster formed by Blood Ancestor Dallas' blood chi were crushed. Blood dyed the walls, ceiling, and floor of the room red. The old liar and Blood Ancestor Dallas' pupils contracted. How is this possible? Blood Ancestor Dallas looked at Chen Zhao in shock. How did he do it? Blood Ancestor Dallas knew very well how powerful he was. But how did he do it? Why did he shatter his blood god Dharma idol when he didn't feel anything? I want to see more spells that make me feel fresh, Chen Zhao said indifferently. If you can't satisfy my curiosity, then you'll die even faster. Blood Ancestor Dallas had been unbridled and arrogant a moment ago, but now he was frowning deeply. Chen Zhao didn't release his own aura, but even so, Dallas still felt the pressure. Even though Chen Zhao was hiding his strength and aura, he could directly destroy his blood god Dharma. Just this move alone was enough for him to be cautious. Die. Blood Ancestor Dallas' body trembled slightly. The blood on the walls instantly turned into countless blood thorns that shot toward Chen Zhao. Chapter 2744. Chen Zhao's pupils suddenly turned red. A red ripple suddenly spread out from Chen Zhao's body. The red ripple wasn't very eye-catching, but it was impossible to ignore. When the red ripple spread out, Old Liar and Rolling didn't feel anything strange. When it touched them, it was only a little warm. That was all. But the moment the red ripple touched the blood thorns, they evaporated. Dallas' blood didn't even have many places to hide. The moment the red ripple swept past, his skin was carbonized. Ah! Dallas' blood fell to the ground in pain. He had already forgotten when was the last time he'd been so heavily injured. Was it the great battle 20 years ago? That battle had indeed injured him to the brink of death. But it definitely hadn't been as pathetic as today. The kid in front of him was young, but his strength was terrifying. Rolling and Old Liar's expressions also froze. They didn't understand why the red ripple didn't hurt them at all when it touched them. But when it touched Dallas' blood, it would cause such damage. Dallas' blood's expression changed. He painstakingly healed the burns on his body and pressed his palms against the ground. In an instant, the color of blood spread out. Then, the inside and outside of the room turned red. Even the window was swallowed by the red. It was like the end of the world. At this moment, Old Liar and Rolling were no different. They didn't know what was happening before them at all. Chen Zhao was as calm as ever. An alternate space? Chen Zhao didn't expect Dallas' blood to have developed his own alternate space when he was half a step into the Shangqing realm. It also seemed that this wasn't a simple alternate space. The place was filled with a thick blood aura, as if it had been washed by a sea of blood. Chen Zhao looked at Dallas' blood in surprise. This guy's cultivation wasn't high, but the scale and complexity of this alternate space far exceeded his level. This alternate space was second only to the wasteland market that imitated the layout of Istanbul when Chen Zhao was in Istanbul last time. This alternate space definitely wasn't created and set up by Dallas' blood himself. At least, even Chen Zhao couldn't make such a huge and complicated alternate space. You're dead. Blood Ancestor Wudao's eyes were filled with determination. Around Chen Zhao, apart from the room they were in, the entire building and even the entire street had disappeared. They were now in a private space. In this private space, once one's magic power was exhausted, without the owner's permission, one would not even be able to recover one's magic power by inhaling and exhaling spiritual energy. Of course, this kind of space could not trap a Shangqing realm master. Even a Shangqing realm cultivator would not be able to recover his mana here. However, a Shangqing realm expert could break through the alternate dimension and escape. So, Chen Zhao looked at Dallas in confusion. You want to trap me with this space? I know you're an expert in the Shangqing realm, but this is the land of the blood god. No one can escape from here, not even Zhang Tianyi. Blood ancestor Wu Dao was very confident about this. Chen Zhao sensed a tremendous amount of blood qi in the center of this place. It was so tremendous that even he could not catch up to it. A confident smile appeared on blood ancestor Wu Dao's face. This wasn't any other place. Outside, he was still half a step into the Shangqing realm. But here, he was a true Shangqing realm cultivator. And a top Shangqing realm cultivator. Here, he was a god, a true god. Suddenly, Chen Zhao felt the huge mass of blood qi in the center of the alternate dimension move. Then, the ground shook heavily. What happened next made Rolling and the old liar dumbfounded. The ceiling of the house had been lifted off. It was a blood-colored giant that could lift the ceiling with one palm. The blood-red giant's body was inlaid with obscure golden patterns. It was over 100 meters tall and had a thick tail behind it. Blood god. He is a true blood god, a peerless expert in ancient times. The land of the blood god is his burial ground. After he died, he refined himself into a small world and turned it into this alternate dimension, Blood Ancestor Wu Dao said proudly. Blood Ancestor Dallas said proudly, I received the blood god's inheritance, and at the same time, I inherited this space. Here, the blood god is also a part of my small world. Blood god? Chen Zhao had never heard of this god before. But this didn't stop Chen Zhao from being curious about this blood god. He was definitely powerful. He was even more powerful than the god of strength that Chen Zhao had encountered in the abandoned Mount Olympus. Even if he was already dead, even if he had been dead for who knew how many thousands of years. This reminded Chen Zhao of the ancient remains that he'd found in the belly of Mount Chogo. The two weren't exactly strong or weak, but the way they dealt with their deaths clearly had their own characteristics and uniqueness. In the ancient remains of Mount Chogo, he had used a special circulation method to keep his remains from decaying for thousands of years, and he had also maintained his own small world. However, his essence, qi, and spirit had long dissipated. Other than the remains, there was nothing left. The blood god before him was even more special. He'd refined his own small world and himself into an alternate dimension. Chen Zhao didn't understand. He was gone and his essence, qi, and spirit had all dissipated. Why did he leave his body behind? Was he going to leave it as a memento? For example, the blood god before him had been preserved quite well. He probably had 10 to 20% of his strength when he was alive. However, he didn't have any consciousness at all. In his eyes, he'd been treated like a giant toy by an ant. If he met someone weak, he'd just bully them. But now that he'd met Chen Zhao, he'd just be a piece of cake. If he'd been alive, he might have been able to exchange a few blows with Chen Zhao. But he was already dead. So, Chen Zhao wondered if he should help him clean up his mess and take over his inheritance, if he still had any. Chen Zhao looked at the blood-colored giant before him. Blood ancestor Dallas seemed to think that Chen Zhao had been scared out of his wits. This made him quite proud. Because he'd fought Chen Zhao 3 times before, he'd always been at a disadvantage. Now that he saw Chen Zhao scared out of his wits, his confidence skyrocketed again. Even the burns on his body didn't hurt as much anymore. Chen Zhao felt it was a pity. Such a huge amount of blood qi wasn't life force. How could blood qi gather? He could probably accumulate such a huge amount of life force by killing hundreds of thousands of people. This thing was used for big moves. It was useless at other times, at least not for Chen Zhao. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2745. Die. Blood ancestor Dallas controlled Blood God's body and grabbed at the three people in the house. If this slap landed, the entire house would probably be crushed by him. Rolling and Old Liar's faces were drained of blood. Chen Zhao tilted his head slightly and looked at the descending palm. A brand new power seeped out from the depths of Chen Zhao's body and gathered in his right arm. This power was refined from Chen Zhao's own immortal power, Flame Qi, and Yin's spirit power. The three of them combined into one. Chen Zhao called this power Mixed Elements Qi. Different from chaotic Qi, Chen Zhao's power could be said to be unique. Mixed elements, fusion, origin, beginning. Chen Zhao also combined this method of refinement with his own cultivation system and called it Mixed Elements Return to One. Of course, Chen Zhao had only succeeded after reading through many books in the Celestial Master Sect's library on Dragon Tiger Mountain and combining it with his actual situation and many secluded cultivation sessions. Mixed Elements Return to One could be said to be the first time Chen Zhao had unified all his cultivation systems. In the past, Chen Zhao's cultivation system was mainly based on power and had many complex branches. However, even after this unification, Chen Zhao still kept some special powers that couldn't be integrated into the main system. For example, Dark Lava and the Immaculate Eye. And Chen Zhao's control over water. These were all spells or bloodline powers. Chen Zhao couldn't integrate these powers into Mixed Elements Return to One. The moment Blood God's huge palm came down, Chen Zhao also waved his right arm. Whoosh! Blood God's body flew thousands of meters away. At the same time, Blood God's right arm and shoulder completely disappeared. In the distance, there were marks left by Blood God's fall and roll. The scene was a ghastly sight. Rolling and Old Liar's eyes were about to fall out. Even Blood Ancestor Dallas was dumbfounded. Is this a joke? Is this an illusion? Blood Ancestor Dallas immediately flew back 100 meters. It was too dangerous to be in such close contact with this man. Blood Ancestor Dallas felt like his hair was standing on end. How much power was needed to send the Blood God, who was like a giant god, flying thousands of meters away? Blood God stood up again. It seemed that the punch hadn't caused any fatal damage. Of course, he was already a corpse. Blood God's shattered shoulder began to regrow. However, after a bit of flesh grew out, it quickly rotted away, and the hatched flesh fell off again. Blood Progenitor Dallas' expression changed drastically again. What was going on? Wasn't the Blood God's body indestructible? Why can't I recover? That punch just now is called Nerve Blade. If you want to heal his damaged body, you'd better get rid of the power I left in his muscles and nerves first. Of course, the so-called nerve knife was just something he made up on the spot. The alternate dimension and the Blood God's body were one. Therefore, the Blood God's body would absorb the blood qi in the alternate dimension to repair itself. However, ever since Chen Zhao's power system had been integrated and he had obtained primordial chaos qi, Chen Zhao's power system had been completely integrated. The primordial chaos qi was not only reflected in its destructive power. Furthermore, it had a continuous destructive effect on the physical body. For example, the enemies he had encountered in the past had strong recovery abilities. Basically, if he wanted to repair his body, he had to expel the power that Chen Zhao had left behind. To Chen Zhao, primordial chaos qi was beneficial for strengthening his body. However, it was definitely not good for his enemies. It was more troublesome than most viruses. It was even terrifying. Apart from killing the body's cells, it could also devour vitality and mental energy to make itself stronger. Therefore, it was even harder to get rid of. If he didn't know how to expel it, he might make the primordial chaos qi even stronger. Just like the Blood God's body right now. Parts of the body that were corroded by the primordial chaos qi would lose their vitality and become rotten. Blood Progenitor Dallas stared at Chen Zhao with an uncertain expression. Chen Zhao's strength was beyond his imagination. Where's the blood god's legacy? Give it to me, Chen Zhao said indifferently. You think I'll give it to you? Blood progenitor Dallas gritted his teeth and stared at Chen Zhao. His eyes seemed to flash with determination. Chen Zhao raised his arms. Blood progenitor Dallas immediately became alert. He could already sense that the situation might get out of control. However, he felt that he could still be saved. Chen Zhao's actions made him uneasy. After all, Chen Zhao had only used one arm and one punch to destroy the blood god's body. But now, he actually raised his arms. It was obvious that this wasn't a normal attack. Just then, a large part of the dark blood-red sky suddenly caved in. It was as if someone was compressing the entire space from the outside in. Chen Zhao pulled his palms inward slightly and an even larger part appeared. The ground was also shaking. Huge unknown red objects kept falling from the sky. Everyone in the alternate space felt like the sky was falling and the earth was cracking. Blood progenitor Dallas had been coughing up blood since Chen Zhao started attacking. He couldn't even struggle now. He couldn't even stop the bleeding for a moment. Chen Zhao was going to crush the alternate space. He was really going to crush the blood god's space from the inside. Of course, it wasn't appropriate to say that he was crushing it. This was because Chen Zhao was compressing the blood qi in the alternate space from the outside. When blood progenitor Dallas was outside, he was only half a step into the Shangqing state. His small world was connected to the 8 blood demons, forming a small world. But after entering this place, he was the master of this place. The entire land of the blood god was his small world. So, when Chen Zhao destroyed this place, it was reflected back to him. Actually, if it was a normal small world, Chen Zhao wouldn't be able to destroy it. But this place wasn't a normal small world. Chen Zhao's palms pressed inwards by another inch. The world closed up a little more. The surrounding ground continued to crack, and the sky shattered. Rolling and Old Liar were actually at the same level. One was an ordinary person, while the other was a more knowledgeable cultivator. But in Chen Zhao's eyes, they were all the same. A beetle and an ant were the same in the eyes of humans. And the way they looked at Chen Zhao was the same. It wasn't the way they looked at gods, but the way they looked at monsters. I'll kill you. Blood progenitor Dallas didn't expect his so-called immortal body anymore. The so-called immortal body could fool low-level cultivators like Old Liar. Even Old Liar, who was at his peak 20 years ago, was only a low-level cultivator in the eyes of some people. But the person before them was definitely one of the small group that stood at the top of the pyramid. The so-called undying body was nothing but a joke in the eyes of this group of people. Chapter 2746. Normal cultivators couldn't kill blood demons. That was because they couldn't destroy their magic structure. But the people at the top of the pyramid were different. They didn't care about magic structure at all. They destroyed it from the microscopic level. In fact, demonic creatures like the blood devils couldn't even take form in front of them. If they wanted to, they could turn blood demons into a pile of rotten meat. Compared to blood demons, these people were more like monsters walking in the human world. For example, what was happening right now? The land of the blood god was hundreds of square kilometers wide. It was being crushed by this monster. Dallas Blood had thought that he was already one of these monsters. He had the right to be called a monster. But when he really faced such a monster, he finally realized how naive and ridiculous his thoughts had been. He'd never been one of these monsters. He hadn't even gotten close. He'd been arrogant just because he'd refined the land of the blood god and grasped the shallow secrets of the Shangqing realm. He'd been naive enough to think that he could escape even if he encountered Zhang Tianyi. In fact, that wasn't his biggest mistake. He'd actually thought that no one in the entire Huaxia's supernatural world could do anything to him except Zhang Tianyi. He'd only been back for 2 days and he'd already encountered such a monster. How many of these monsters were hidden in the entire Huaxia? Dallas Blood couldn't control the urge to vomit blood. He spat out another mouthful of blood. Chen Zhao's palms finally closed. The sky and ground were instantly shattered by the terrifying power. Enrolling in the old liar's eyes, everything in the world was collapsing. Dallas Blood's body also collapsed in an instant. A blood-colored figure quickly escaped from the dead body. But the next moment, Chen Zhao grabbed it. Dallas Blood's blood-colored soul struggled. But he wasn't Chen Zhao's match even when he was alive. Not to mention that his soul was weak after death. You don't really think you can escape, do you? Chen Zhao grinned. Dallas Blood saw that darkness was spreading over the crack in the collapsing world. And the man before him was the center of the darkness. He was definitely not a Taoist cultivator. He was a cultivator darker and more evil than Dallas Blood. Chen Zhao's dark shadow was corroding the land of the blood god. Chen Zhao wanted to find out the blood god's secret. Therefore, the land of the blood god's physical body, and the blood god's inheritance that blood patriarch Dallas had obtained were all indispensable. Now, all three of them were treated as his collection. Chen Zhao raised his hand and grabbed at the air with all his might. In an instant, the shattered blood-colored world was taken away like a dining table. The sky regained its radiant starry sky. Well, except for the building that was missing a section, everything else had returned to normal. Rolling and the old liar saw Dallas' soul being crushed into a glass orb and put away. The old swindler couldn't help but lament that he hadn't completely separated himself from the supernatural world. Why did the spirit world suddenly feel so foreign? The Dallas Blood ancestor, who had wreaked havoc 20 years ago and no one had been able to subdue him, had suddenly become so powerless? No, it wasn't that the blood ancestor was incompetent. It was that man who was too terrifying. When did such a terrifying monster appear in Huaxia's supernatural world? Furthermore, he didn't look like a good person. At the very least, the black substance that engulfed the shattered space didn't seem like something a righteous cultivator would use. Of course, the old liar definitely wouldn't shout about killing demons and protecting the Tao. Killing demons and protecting the Tao required capital. And he couldn't even beat Dallas Blood ancestor. Not to mention Chen Zhao, who had beaten Dallas Blood ancestor to the point that his stomach was bleeding. It's almost daybreak. I should go. Goodbye, police comrade. Rolling stared at Chen Zhao's departing figure in a daze. She didn't say anything stupid like needing Chen Zhao's cooperation in the investigation. She didn't ask about the supernatural world that didn't belong to her. To her, everything she had experienced last night was too unimaginable. However, it was like a dream. It was destined to be a dream. What a terrifying guy, the old liar lamented as he watched Chen Zhao's departing figure. You're also his kind, right? Rolling asked, glancing at the old liar. My kind? You overestimate me. He's one of the top few people in the world. As for me, even if I didn't have my old injuries, I'd still be nothing compared to him at my peak. Although the old liar's cultivation wasn't as high as Dallas Blood ancestor, he still had sharp eyes. That kind of power that could destroy the world was definitely someone who existed at the top of the pyramid in the supernatural world. He probably wasn't bragging when he said that he had walked around the Celestial Master Sex Library on Dragon Tiger Mountain. Chen Zhao got the news from Zhang Tianyi. The case regarding Yu Keming's death had been closed. The official answer was that he had committed suicide. According to the information Chen Zhao had obtained from Dallas Blood ancestor, Yu Keming had indeed committed suicide. Of course, it could also be said that he had been bewitched by Dallas Blood ancestor. Yu Keming wanted to find Chen Zhao for revenge. But he'd heard that Chen Zhao was also a cultivator. So, he'd found another way and actually contacted Dallas Blood ancestor. Then, he'd been bewitched by Dallas Blood ancestor. In a moment of impulse, Yu Keming had cooperated and completed the blood demon transformation ritual. Dallas Blood ancestor had originally wanted to use Yu Keming as the 9th blood demon and then complete the 9 transformation blood demon art. But in the end, he'd still failed because of Chen Zhao. Yu Keming's soul had been destroyed by Dao's blood ancestor. But Dao's blood ancestor wasn't much better off than Yu Keming. It could even be said that Dao's blood ancestor's current situation was partly due to Yu Keming. If Dao's blood ancestor had chosen someone else as his ninth blood demon, he probably wouldn't have ended up like this. At least, he wouldn't have met Chen Zhao. That afternoon, Yi Ziqing and Zhang Ting came to find Chen Zhao again. Both of them apologized for the trouble they'd caused Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao didn't take it to heart. Chen Zhao felt that this wasn't trouble at all. Moreover, these things weren't something they could control. In order to express their apology, Yi Ziqing took the initiative to help Chen Zhao organize Chen Zhao's animation company's annual party. In another 2 or 3 days, the animation company's employees would also come back one after another. Of course, this wasn't just to help Chen Zhao. This was because Zhang Ting had been in charge of the party. Chen Zhao was only responsible for the money. Zhang Ting was in charge of everything else. Chen Zhao used his free time to make up for the time he'd wasted a few days ago and walked around Shanghai. Ever since that night, Rolling hadn't appeared before Chen Zhao again. Chapter 2747. Is this man our boss? A new employee secretly asked an old employee at the banquet table. Yes, our big boss. The old employee nodded. Chen Zhao said a few words on the stage and then left. After all, it was a gathering, not a meeting. Moreover, Chen Zhao felt that it would be very stupid to say a lot of nonsense in any situation. Usually, there were 3 treasures for company gatherings: food, program, and lucky draw. The food went without saying. It was one of the best restaurants in Shanghai, at least for the price. The program was to invite some second or third-rate celebrities to perform. After the new year, many celebrities would leave their homes. It was normal for some companies to invite celebrities to perform for them. The prize of the lucky draw was just slightly better than that of an ordinary company's lucky draw, and the chances of winning were slightly higher. The so-called team building was actually a one-stop service of eating, drinking, and playing. In this aspect, Yi Ziqing arranged it better than Zhang Ting. It was said that before she became the technical director of this company, she'd been the HR manager and administrative director of a multinational company. Ms. Yi, are you interested in developing at our company? Chen Zhao asked Yi Ziqing, who was sitting across from him. Yi Ziqing smiled, but she was also considering Chen Zhao's invitation. Regarding her future, she couldn't just make a decision based on their relationship. Mr. Chen, do you know my current position and salary? I heard it from Zhang Ting, Chen Zhao said. I can also give you the position of administrative director. Of course, the salary will be the highest in the country. Mr. Chen, I don't want a short-term salary. I want to see room for growth, not just for my position, but also for the company. Regarding growth, to be honest, I don't know how to manage a company, Chen Zhao said frankly. As for how big the company can be, I can't guarantee anything. It should be how big Zhang Ting wants it to be. The only thing I can do is not interfere with the company's management and development. I bought the company, but I'm more like an investor. I only invest money and don't manage it. Then, Mr. Chen, what's your goal in investing in Chinese comics? Is it for the return on investment? Or for your so-called dream? Chen Zhao thought about it. Would he get beaten up if he told the truth? His goal was to recruit the most professional and imaginative team. You should know that the current domestic animation industry is not very developed. At least compared to the American and Japanese animation industry, it is still in its infancy. However, I believe that the potential of Chinese comics far surpasses that of any other market. The rate of return is secondary. If we can achieve a situation where we don't make a loss in the next 5 years and make a profit in the next 10 years, that would be a profit for me. Investing in Chinese comics is more about preserving my assets. This answer was very pertinent. At least, Yi Ziqing felt that it was reasonable. Moreover, Chen Zhao was one of the few investors who was willing to let go and not interfere with the company's development. She could tell from the information she got from Zhang Ting. Other than the fact that Chen Zhao's treatment far exceeded the requirements of the contract, he would also occasionally ask some strange questions. Chen Zhao was the perfect investor that entrepreneurs liked the most. So far, there was only one person in the entire company that Chen Zhao had arranged to join. That was the supervisor in charge of finance, responsible for supervising the company's financial situation. But even so, Yi Ziqing wouldn't accept it easily. Because sometimes, a person's will would not always be able to do as they pleased. Even the investors themselves. If the investors' funds were disconnected, they might make up for it in other ways or raise funds. For example, they might sell the company they invested in. Such situations were everywhere. So, Yi Ziqing felt that she had to ask about Chen Zhao's personal situation. Mr. Chen, what other investments do you have overseas? All my investments and assets are in real estate, and I don't owe the bank a single cent, so you don't have to worry about me running out of funds. My current net worth should be enough to buy 10,000 animation companies. If I compare it to the Forbes list of the world's richest people, my net worth should be equal to the sum of the top 3 people on the list. Yi Ziqing gasped. The sum of the top 3? Are you kidding me? What did that mean? The first place on the Forbes list had more than $100 billion. The second and third places also had $100 billion. In other words, Chen Zhao's net worth was more than $200 billion. Then why isn't Mr. Chen's name on the Forbes list? Because most of my assets are unlisted. Oh, no, apart from the 20% shares of Caribbean Empire Cruise Line, I also have some Citibank shares and some PLM shares. These familiar stocks were enough to make Yi Ziqing's heart skip a beat. Even 1% of these shares was already wealth that most people in the world couldn't earn in their entire lives. However, these things were only a small portion of Chen Zhao's wealth. The value of these shares should be enough for Mr. Chen to enter the Forbes top 10, right? The 20% of Caribbean Empire Cruise Line is an unregistered share, but with just Citibank and PLM shares, I should be able to enter the top 20 next year. He could become one of the top 20 richest people in the world with a small portion of the listed company's shares. This shocking wealth made Yi Ziqing speechless. Then, she thought about her previous plans. Yi Ziqing suddenly felt so insignificant. Before absolute wealth, anyone would feel insignificant. I also have a company with 90% absolute shares. It's also the most profitable in the world. Chen Zhao was obviously talking about Dashan Beer. Because it wasn't listed, there were no financial reports. However, Dashan Beer was definitely one of the most profitable. So, my 2 days' income can probably be used to invest in Chinese comics, Chen Zhao said with a shrug. Yi Ziqing suddenly didn't want to talk to Chen Zhao anymore. She suddenly understood why Chen Zhao would give his employees benefits so much. Why Fei Lai didn't even consider if she would max out her credit card when she shopped. This guy really had too much money to spend. Mr. Chen, you don't want to invest in something with high returns? High returns also mean high risks. This doesn't match my personality. I'd rather leave my money in the bank to earn interest than do risky investments. The interest Chen Zhao earned from leaving his money in the bank was different from ordinary people. Chen Zhao's savings in the bank had already exceeded $15 billion. Even banks would go crazy over such a huge amount. Chapter 2748. Yi Ziqing was shocked. She knew that Chen Zhao was rich. Zhang Ting had said it many times. However, Zhang Ting's words were still a bit subjective. She thought that Chen Zhao looked like a nouveau riche. It was just that he had made a fortune abroad. She was saying that Chen Zhao's money wouldn't last long. But now, Yi Ziqing finally understood. Even if Chen Zhao squandered, he wouldn't be able to keep up with his earning speed. Even if he bought a Gulfstream 8500 a day, he would have extra money. Plus, Chen Zhao didn't like high-risk investments. This would ensure that his wealth wouldn't increase in a short time. But it would also ensure that his wealth wouldn't shrink in a short time. Plus, he didn't think that a nouveau riche could be richer than the world's richest man. Yi Ziqing felt that following Chen Zhao would have a bright future. Plus, Chen Zhao's domestic animation company could become a springboard for Chen Zhao's trusted subordinates. Plus, Chen Zhao didn't like to interfere with the company's management and development. This would give executives like her more room to perform. What executives were most afraid of was the mentality of, I'm the big boss and everyone has to listen to me. I'm rich, so my opinions are professional. Mr. Chen, I think you're rich, but there's a problem with the way you present it. What problem? You're too nice to your employees. Zhang Ting said this too. She said that if you help them, they'll get revenge. If you give them high benefits and bonuses, they'll only think you're stupid. You have to let them know that you're rich, but you can't keep giving them high benefits and bonuses. Then I'll order 2 big meals every day. 1 to eat and 1 to pass. Is that okay? Actually, as long as you improve your food, taste, and temperament, people will naturally feel your wealth and status. I can't let them watch me eat, drink, and poop every day, right? Mr. Chen, you're abroad every day. We can't see you even if we want to, but it's easy to let them know that you're rich. They already know that I'm rich. It's different. They know you're rich, but they just think that you're a nouveau riche. Is there a difference? I'll tell you an effective method. What method? Go to a city and buy the most luxurious house there. Although the global real estate market has fluctuated greatly, in the past 50 years, the price of high-end residential housing has been steadily increasing and has never fallen. Therefore, investing in high-end real estate is also a good choice, especially this kind of purchasing investment method. For you, there is no pressure, and you can obtain a good rate of return. You can also show your wealth to your employees. That's a good idea. Shall we start now? Of course. Do you have any recommendations in Shanghai? There are only a few high-end mansions in Shanghai, and the most famous one is Thompson. I know this series, but it should be very popular. It's the exact opposite. Thompson Premium has been open for 15 years. In these 15 years, they've only sold half of it. Their annual sales plan is to sell 5 sets. Yi Ziqing said again, of course, there are more high-end houses in Shanghai than just Thompson, so Mr. Chen has many choices. Why didn't I think of buying a house in every place we go? It will be much more convenient for my family to travel in the future. We don't have to stay in hotels all day. Actually, in terms of business, Chen Zhao was indeed a noob. He also knew how talented he was in business. Therefore, he would never let an amateur command an expert. Chen Zhao had his current wealth because he knew how weak he was. Yi Ziqing's method was actually to show off his muscles in business. Rich people bought airplanes and yachts for the same purpose. For the top rich, they could enjoy the best quality of life no matter if they rented or bought it. But they still chose to buy it. Other than the return on investment, it was also because buying airplanes and yachts represented their muscles. Nevertheless, selling airplanes, yachts, and houses would all bring about a huge cash pressure. This meant that even if they had enough money, they would still choose to buy with loans. Once something happened to their business, their airplanes, yachts, or houses would probably be taken away by the bank too. This was also why the rich would go bankrupt if something happened to them. Some fluctuations in the market would make the banks nervous, which would make them withdraw their funds. Then, the rich who took loans would also be affected by the bank's policies, resulting in a series of problems. Of course, these problems were not problems for Chen Zhao. Because Chen Zhao was cash flow now. No fluctuations or shocks could affect Chen Zhao. Even if the housing market stretched from the Himalayas to the Mariana Trench, nothing would happen to Chen Zhao. Actually, there were many ways to show off his muscles. But that was too high profile. Yi Ziqing realized that Chen Zhao actually didn't like to be high profile. Otherwise, he would have easily made it onto the Forbes rich list. So, Yi Ziqing only used this low-profile method. She just had to let the employees know that their boss was very, very rich. That was enough. Yi Ziqing finally decided to join the animation company. With her reputation in the professional management industry, this was actually marrying the animation company. Under normal circumstances, a professional manager like Yi Ziqing, who had proven her ability and had sufficient qualifications, could totally find a more successful and promising company. Not Qin Zhao's animation company, which had just been established. Even before this, there hadn't been a single successful company. Yi Ziqing actually still valued Qin Zhao. Yi Ziqing didn't just want to lead the animation company to success. Instead, she wanted to join the core members of Qin Zhao's interest group and become a part of it. The next day, under Yi Ziqing's arrangements, all the employees were arranged to go to a vacation villa. Currently, most of the vacation villas in China existed in the form of farmhouses. However, this holiday villa near Shanghai was a true holiday villa. Beautiful scenery and delicious food were the basic requirements. There were also man-made ski resorts and amusement park facilities. Moreover, there were also some tame wild animals, which made this holiday villa an excellent place for a vacation. Plus, the surrounding environment made the employees of the animation company enjoy it so much that they forgot to leave. All the group expenses here would be paid by Qin Zhao. But apart from the vacation, Qin Zhao still requested for the special meeting. Chapter 2749. Boss, what's going on with this meeting? We were having a good time, why did we suddenly have a meeting? Has our big boss gone crazy? The new employee secretly asked his team leader. At this moment, the team leader looked like he hadn't slept for the whole night. Or perhaps, he was angered to the core. Anyway, he seemed to be in a very good state. The team leader was probably in a very bad mood at this moment. After all, he had such a good time these 2 days. Last night, he suddenly announced that the big boss would hold a special meeting today. At that time, he felt that the atmosphere had become very strange. In his heart, he wondered if this so-called special meeting had caused public anger. Shut up. Be more respectful to our livelihood. The team leader held the document in his hands tightly. In fact, he had only been on the job for less than 2 months. However, in the span of 2 months, he had experienced 2 special meetings. However, the first 2 special meetings were sudden situations. The big boss had made up his mind at the last minute. So at that time, all the employees were at a loss and were caught off guard. Later, the few proposals that were given to the big boss were actually relatively low-end proposals in the eyes of the team leader. Anyway, as a professional team leader, he felt that he could handle that kind of proposal. At the same time, he also felt sorry and regretful for not being able to come up with a better proposal at that time. In fact, this kind of mentality was shared by most of the employees. After all, this proposal could be exchanged for real money. And it was something that no one could erase. After all, they weren't dealing with their superior. It was their big boss. As for the new employees, such as Xiao Wang in front of him, of course, the team leader wouldn't tell him easily. After all, one more person meant one more competitor. The team leader was definitely not the only one who had this kind of thought. Almost all the employees with a little bit of experience thought so. The few new employees looked at the old employees who were arriving one after another. They found that the expressions of these old employees were a little strange. They looked a little nervous. The stiff expression on his face made him look very unhappy. The new employees thought that it was because of this impromptu meeting that made them unhappy. In fact, these old employees were in a kind of excited mood at the moment. Soon, the new employees found that these old employees had prepared a document. They even found that even the sweeping auntie who came with the group had prepared a document. Strange, what was that document for? Was it sent by the higher-ups about the content of this special meeting? Why didn't they have it? Team leader, what is this document for? What's the content of this meeting? No, it's just for show. Our big boss likes this set, the team leader explained casually. Oh, then do I need to prepare one too? No need. There are so many people here anyway. Big boss might not notice you. Besides, the meeting is about to start. Oh, all right then. Just then, Chen Zhao walked into the hall. Glancing at the staff in the venue, he picked up the microphone and went straight to the point. I'm sure everyone knows the content of this meeting. It's still the person with code name X, and the reward rules are the same. We'll follow the results of the previous meeting. But it's different from last time. X has comprehended an inner world. You can ask your questions now. The so-called principles were what Chen Zhao had said. They needed to analyze them as real people. It was impossible to deny whether this statement was in line with science or physics. They only needed to think according to this line of thought, or to make up for the imperfections or inaccuracies. President Chen, I want to know the settings of the inner world, the team leader asked impatiently. First, the inner world is the sea of consciousness. When X's spiritual power explosively increases, it also connects with the external world, forming a more complete force field. The term inner world comes from Taoist culture. It means that heaven and earth are united. The inner world is vast and boundless. In theory, it's endless. Rather than saying it's an inner world, it's more like a microscopic universe. The inner world also has an endless capacity for energy, but this capacity will still affect the body and become a burden on the body. So, even though the inner world is limitless, the body still has a limit. Chen Zhao talked endlessly about the inner world. Some of the information was something he'd already proven. Some of the information was guessed and deduced based on his own situation. He couldn't prove it right or wrong yet. Chen Zhao glanced at the people in the room. Now, you can start to follow my train of thought to perfect or correct my settings. President Chen, I think there's a problem with X's development of the inner world. Oh? What problem? When X's inner world absorbs external energy, it will burden the body. I don't think there should be a burden. Why? That's because apart from his inner world, his inner core is also constantly absorbing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Why doesn't his body feel burdened and it absorbs energy? Instead, his inner world, a spiritual world that should be invisible and intangible, feels burdened? Chen Zhao couldn't help but fall silent. The employee continued, feeling a burden means that the inner world and X's body have formed a connection. Or rather, they're one. It's like how ordinary people feel full when they eat too much, but the inner world eats too much and doesn't digest it. President Chen only said that the inner world absorbs energy, but he didn't say that the energy is refined. Although it can be used, it's only a very basic transformation and release of energy. It still lacks the most important process of digesting energy. Because of this, it's a burden on the body. Chen Zhao nodded unconsciously. He seemed to have really neglected this problem. The employee paused and continued to state his point of view. And X has always focused on quantity, not quality. Let's say that if the inner world absorbs quantity and digests it, it becomes quality. President Chen has always emphasized that X's energy is several times or even dozens of times that of cultivators of the same level. This is an advantage, but now it's a disadvantage. Why? For the same reason, is it faster to digest 1 unit of energy or 100 units of energy faster? In other words, X will need several times or even dozens of times more time to digest the energy than cultivators of the same level, right? Yes, but in terms of energy refinement, everyone is different. Chen Zhao glanced at Zhang Ting beside him. I'll give him 20 points. The crowd burst into an uproar. Even Zhang Ting looked surprised. Chapter 2750. This was the rule Chen Zhao had set last time. Chen Zhao would score the proposals based on how good or bad they were. If Chen Zhao was satisfied with the proposal, he would naturally get a high score, and vice versa. Qin Zhao's score was completely random. There were no other standards. As for whether anyone objected? Not yet. According to Qin Zhao's standard, each point was worth $10,000. This meant that this employee had earned $200,000 from his speech just now. Almost everyone was in an uproar. Of course, this didn't include the new employees who had just joined before the new year. These new employees were still in a daze. They didn't understand what 20 points meant at all. But looking at everyone's expressions, they seemed to have missed something. The new employees thought that the seniors' expressions were frozen because of this impromptu meeting. But now, when they spoke, they seemed very lively. No, it wasn't as simple as that, they seemed to be very eager. Everyone kept flipping through the documents and information they'd prepared. Wang glanced at his team leader. He saw that his team leader was also flipping through the documents he'd prepared last night. Then, he seemed to find what he needed and immediately raised his hand. Wei, you do it. The team leader named by Zhang Ting stood up immediately. President Chen, regarding the growth of the inner world and the outer world, I feel that this has also verified the previous division of realms. The growth of the inner world and the outer world will eventually evolve into a true small world. Therefore, regarding the future growth of X, we still need to move in this direction. Wei drank some water and tried to make his statement clearer. He continued, Taoism has the heavenly cultivation method, and the universe takes form. What does that mean? The heavenly cultivation method can be understood as Taoism's divine power or boundless magical power, but it's recorded in the Taoist scriptures of the Nan family. The key is the word gain. This word is very obscure. In Taoism, gain is one's own gain and loss. Things that aren't one's own can't be obtained. Cultivation means to develop oneself. The universe takes form. If there's nothing in the universe, how can it take form? Naturally, we have to follow up with the phrase, heaven and earth are formless, and the universe has nothing. Turn nothing into something, turn nothingness into reality. Only then can we obtain the great Tao. Chen Zhao looked at little Wei in surprise. Even if he was someone from the supernatural world, and he had recently crammed through a large number of Taoist scriptures, he was still a Taoist cultivator. But none of them were as transparent as little Wei. Your name is little Wei? President Chen, my name is Wei Shuhuang. You're very knowledgeable about Taoism. Little Wei scratched his head in embarrassment. He. I was weak and sickly when I was young. My parents were afraid that I would die, so they sent me to live in a Taoist temple in the mountains for 2 years. They even donated a few dozen yuan, so I became a Taoist for a few years. It was only after I entered middle school that I left the Taoist temple. However, I'll give you 20 points. Your understanding of Taoism is very helpful to me. Little Wei immediately sat down happily. Team leader, what is this score for? Little Wang asked softly. Is it for performance evaluation? Our company is in the animation business. I don't think we do a performance evaluation, right? Little Wang could see that many envious and jealous gazes were directed at his team leader. Wasn't it just a score given by the big boss? Was there a need for that murderous look? What a huge grudge. It's nothing. I'm just here to exchange it for money, Little Wei said lightly. Oh, exchange it for money? No wonder. Little Wang pouted. He was not interested. However, why did his colleagues all act like they had never seen the world before? Wasn't it just some money? Was there a need for such a deep grudge? Team leader, how much can 1 point be exchanged for? Little Wang stretched out a finger. 10 yuan? 100 yuan? Don't tell me it's 1,000 yuan. Little Wang thought for a moment and looked at the naked gazes around him. His heart could not help but race. If 1 point could be exchanged for 1,000 yuan, didn't his team leader earn 20,000 yuan just because of what he said just now? That was really possible. If it was just 1 point for 100 yuan, these people would not have such ferocious gazes. It seemed like he had to fight for it. It's 10,000 yuan. 10,000 yuan? Little Wang's eyes widened. He looked at his team leader in shock. It's 10,000 yuan for 20 points, right? No, it's 10,000 yuan for 1 point. Team leader, your speech just now was worth 200,000 yuan, right? Yes, it's 200,000 yuan, but it's not in yuan. Where's the currency from? Korean? Or Japanese? Don't tell me it's Vietnamese dong. It's in US dollars. 200,000. Little Wei's face was red. Little Wang's eyes widened even more. How was that possible? 200,000? If it was changed to yuan, it was enough to buy a house in a second or third-tier city. Even in first-tier cities other than Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, 200,000 was enough for a down payment. You didn't tell me, huh? I thought you knew, Little Wei said, chuckling. What a joke. The competition is so intense now. If I tell you, it will be even more intense. This was Little Wei's true thoughts. It was also what most employees were thinking. Little Wang's heart was filled with remorse, just like most of the employees. He looked at Chen Zhao expectantly. Just then, a few more people stood up to speak. You're not bad. 1 point for each of you as encouragement. Everyone roughly understood that the last few people's speeches did not satisfy Chen Zhao. The so-called not bad meant that it was barely passable. The few people were helpless too. The materials they had prepared for the exam did not match what Chen Zhao wanted to hear this time. Therefore, it was naturally difficult for them to satisfy Chen Zhao. But I still hope that the later speeches can be more professional. Actually, Chen Zhao had already gained a lot from today's special meeting. At least, compared to the money he had paid, it was completely negligible. The first person mentioned his current key problem. As for the second person, he mentioned his own path forward. Zhang Ting had made a similar suggestion before. However, Zhang Ting's suggestion was still at a shallow stage. This person's suggestion, on the other hand, was more profound but not hard to understand. Moreover, he was proficient in Taoism. His quotations were more convincing. The second person's speech was not bad either. If it had been before, Chen Zhao would probably have given him more points. However, if it was said later, it would be obvious who was better. It would be difficult to gain Chen Zhao's approval. Chapter 2751. After the special meeting. The new employees finally understood. They'd thought that the big boss just wanted to make his presence known. So, they didn't take it to heart last night. On the other hand, the older employees were all preparing in secret. In the end, a few of the well-prepared old employees made a lot of money. Apart from the first two who spoke, they got 20 points. A few others got 5 to 10 points too. That was about a quarter of the total. The new employees who lost their chance all beat their chests. They regretted back then, President Chen, I really don't understand the purpose of this special meeting. Yi Ziqing looked at Chen Zhao, confused. Zhang Ting once said that you're planning to shoot a movie in Hollywood and need to perfect the settings. Yes, is there a problem? I still know about Hollywood's assembly line operation model. Hollywood has its own team of screenwriters. It is impossible to find outsiders to do the setting. What's more, even a screenwriter team can't easily invest hundreds of thousands of dollars. In addition to what Zhang Ting said before, you seem to have invested millions of dollars in this X setting. This is very unreasonable. Okay, don't worry about this. I'll request these special meetings from time to time. Apart from that, I won't interfere with any decisions or development of the company. To Yi Ziqing, this was just Chen Zhao's personal temper. It wasn't a problem for the company. She naturally wouldn't waste time discussing the meaning of this with Chen Zhao. She only asked Chen Zhao out of curiosity. As for whether Chen Zhao knew how to squander. Squandering was also a matter of talent. As long as Chen Zhao didn't go to wholesale nuclear warheads, his family business wouldn't be finished. Yi Ziqing and Zhang Ting also received Chen Zhao's orders. They could spend as much money as they could on the following group projects. Anyway, he had to let the employees know that he was rich, very rich. Actually, this was already an unnecessary move. Chen Zhao planned to go home in a few days. His domestic matters had also come to an end. Chen Zhao didn't have many special arrangements for Mo Han. He just wanted him to start a company first. For now, there was nothing else he needed to deal with. But that might not be the case in the future. After all, Chen Zhao was overseas. If there was something he needed to deal with in China, it would be much more convenient to have a local spokesperson. Mr. Chen, are you still in Shanghai? Chen Zhao received another call from Wang He. Although he was a little surprised, it was reasonable. Compared to the first time he met Wang He was still a little childish. The current Wang He had matured a lot, be it in terms of speech or behavior. In fact, Wang He was only 2 or 3 years younger than Chen Zhao. However, after he graduated, he had a good path to stardom and was controlled by his management company and manager. Therefore, he had very little personal experience. This was also why Chen Zhao felt that it was childish. But after not seeing him for a year, Wang He had become a completely different person. At the very least, Wang He was on point when it came to being steady. Yeah, I'm still here, but I've booked a flight back to Los Angeles the day after tomorrow. That's great. I'm going to Shanghai today too. Last time we parted ways in a hurry, so I didn't have the chance to meet up with Mr. Chen. This time, I finally have the chance. Superstar, are you free? I've just been banned. Now that all my work has been cleared, I'm thinking of getting my unemployment benefits, Wang He said with a chuckle. Chen Zhao did not think much of it. Wang He was a famous celebrity. Wang He was a famous star, so even if others wanted to ban him, they couldn't. Unless he had done something against the law or morality, and it had been exposed. Then, the country would ban him. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, no company would be able to ban Wang He. What happened? Nothing. I just broke up with my management company and decided to give myself a few days off, Wang He said casually. The management company that he had just terminated his contract with would have a hard time replacing an artist that was 2 levels lower than him, let alone banning him. The so-called ban was just a bargaining chip. If Wang He was willing, he could just throw the penalty fee in the other party's face and call it a day. Of course, if he really did that, there would be enmity between them. They were all in the entertainment industry, so of course they couldn't do that. After all, they would meet frequently. Also, if he forcefully terminated his contract, it would affect Wang He's image and reputation. Therefore, if they fell out, it would be a lose-lose situation. No one would end up well. The reason why the matter hadn't been exposed yet was that their teams were still negotiating in private. After the negotiation, they would smile and say that they parted peacefully. Then, they would compliment each other and show that they were good partners. If the negotiation didn't go well, they would expose each other in the media and slander each other. This was the normal process. Alright, since you're free and I'm still here, let's get together. Chen Zhao's impression of Wang He had improved a lot. At least, Wang He was a mature person now. Therefore, interacting with him wasn't a bad memory. When Chen Zhao saw Wang He again, he was still wearing a mask, but the big group of people behind him was gone. There was only an unfamiliar follower. Mr. Chen. Wang He came over and greeted him. He pulled out a chair and sat down. At the same time, he said to his assistant, Xiao He, go sit over there. I'm going to talk to my friend. Oh, okay, Brother Wang. Xiao He's assistant was quite young. He looked like he had just graduated from school. Before they met, Chen Zhao had already guessed that Wang He would change his assistant. Sister Li was too domineering last time. Her domineering personality was the same as Wang He's. Therefore, they couldn't work together for long. Xiao He's assistant, on the other hand, was basically an obedient child. Qin Zhao didn't know the future, but he was a ball of dough in front of Wang He right now. Mr. Chen, how are you doing in China? I'm not a foreigner. Although I'm living abroad now, your words make me feel like I'm talking to a foreigner. Huh. Why do you care? I'm just asking. Wang He laughed. Mr. Chen, do you remember my suggestion last time? What suggestion? Qin Zhao didn't remember. I plan to open a studio and want to invite you to invest. Qin Zhao shook his head. Sorry, I don't have such plans. Qin Ku, Sister Qin wants to invest too, Wang He reminded him. We're cousins, but we're not as close as you think. Qin Zhao shrugged. I'm not even close to you. Chapter 2752. If you don't have enough money, I can lend you some, Qin Zhao said calmly. Wang He smiled. It wasn't that he didn't have enough money. He just needed connections. With his name, as long as he spread the word, a lot of people would be willing to invest in him. Therefore, he didn't lack money or investments. He invited Qin Zhao because he liked Qin Zhao's strong capital and connections in Hollywood. If it was just money, Wang He didn't lack rich people like that. Mr. Chen, don't you want to know about the future plans of my studio? Sure. Qin Zhao didn't reject him. I've already contacted a few big international companies, Wang He said. They're all interested in signing endorsements with me, but I'll only sign with them after my dispute with the management company is over. Wang He's meaning was clear. If Qin Zhao was willing to cooperate, he could get back his initial investment in an instant. Wang He's popularity in China and status in the entertainment industry meant that he wouldn't lose money investing in him. Even in the Asian region, Wang He had a huge market appeal. This was one of the few investments that would definitely make a profit. Of course, this alone wouldn't be enough to move Qin Zhao. If Qin Zhao kept his money in the bank, he could still make a profit. The interest rate he signed with the bank was higher than the depreciation of the currency. Wang He secretly observed Qin Zhao's expression. He was slightly disappointed by Qin Zhao's calm response. But this was within his expectations. After all, Qin Zhao had a big business. This small benefit wasn't enough to move him. Of course, this is a routine work arrangement. At the same time, I also bought some popular domestic IP, including 3 movies and 2 TV series. Although 2 of the TV series have not yet started shooting, they have been ordered by 2 provincial satellite TV stations to premiere them. Among the 3 movies, 1 is for the international market. At the same time, my studio also signed a contract with the largest domestic video platform, Penguin, to cooperate with 3 variety shows in the first round. Wang He talked non-stop about his work plans and the studio's plans. He also talked about the future he envisioned. Qin Zhao had to admit that Wang He had done work before coming to see Qin Zhao. At least his words were meaningful and his attitude wasn't arrogant or impatient. Even if he didn't have his current status in the entertainment industry, working with someone like him could ensure the return of his investment. Qin Zhao rubbed his chin and considered. Other than the return of investment, there's something more important. Wang He looked at Qin Zhao. What is it? Influence, Wang He said. At present, there are already several international public welfare organizations that are in talks with my team, preparing for further cooperation. At the government level, there are also 2 cities that intend to invite me to be their city's image representative. At present, I am still observing to see which city is more worthy of me being their image representative. The more halos I have, in the future, as my partners, if they need to speak up, they can also speak through me. This will also attract more attention. Qin Zhao could not help but raise his head and examine Wang He seriously. He did not expect Wang He to have already considered this issue. Right now, most of the artists were still struggling with the problem of raising their status. On the other hand, Wang He was already considering the issue of his influence. But he had to admit that Wang He's plan was indeed very attractive. Chen Zhao wasn't interested in the return, but he wasn't against it either. Mr. Chen, I remember you told me last time that you've just acquired a Chinese animation studio. After investigating for the past few days, I found out that the studio has been transformed into an animation company. From my perspective, I can also make a positive direction for the company's works. So if I invest in your studio, what do I need to do? If Mr. Chen has suitable resources in Hollywood, please help me get them. Wang He looked at Chen Zhao with burning eyes. After tasting the sweetness, Wang He naturally couldn't forget about Hollywood. It wasn't just the domestic entertainment industry. In fact, Hollywood was the entertainment center of the entire world. This was an indisputable fact. Celebrities outside of Hollywood flocked to Hollywood like ducks. Wang He could not live the rest of his life with the halo of his past. Although he was still in his prime, he also needed to plan ahead. As his former guide in Hollywood, Chen Zhao naturally had this right. I can't promise you anything about this, Chen Zhao said. This condition isn't mandatory, but if Mr. Chen happens to have this opportunity, please consider me first. How much investment do you need? 100 million, 20% of the shares. 100 million was not a small amount, even if it was RMB. If it was someone else, even if it was 100% of the shares, Chen Zhao would not care. But this person was Wang He. He was worth this price. My assistant will contact you tomorrow, Chen Zhao said. Wang He finally revealed a relaxed smile. How many shares does Chen Ke have? Also 25%. Not only is she a partner, but she's also the studio's product, Wang He said. The studio is specially for her and me. All the resources are allocated to us. Our positions are similar and we don't have any conflicts of resources, so there's no competition. Chen Zhao nodded. After all, their gender determined the division of resources, so the possibility of them working together was higher than competing for resources. By the way, have you decided on the name of the studio? Dream Entertainment, Wang He said. Then I wish you and Chen Ke's dreams come true and success in your career. Us. Other than investing in movies and variety shows, are there any other businesses? Also, trainee training. Chen Zhao did not know much about trainees. Trainees? Those little fresh meats? Actually, those that can already be seen in the media are already successful artists. They have their own fan groups, their own images, and their own personas. They can already make money. If they can also produce a good work, they'll be considered to be in the top tier. Then, is training trainees profitable? Definitely not in the early stages. If you don't invest, there won't be any returns. How's the risk? It's not small, Wang He said emotionally as an experienced person. In fact, this was the path he had taken. First, he was a trainee, then he debuted. He had his moments of glory, but the period before he met Chen Zhao was also his lowest point. If the risk is so high, why do you still do this? Do you believe it, Mr. Chen? I do, Chen Zhao answered after some thought. Feelings are one thing, but as an industry insider, I know some operational plans that can avoid a lot of risks, so I'm quite confident in this. High risk also means high return. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.